man speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
Boom. Hello, everyone. Uh-oh. Why is everything broken? There we go. Much better. Welcome to another Pirate Live stream. We have our Sam Pell. It's ready to go. We have our Muppet Cup. Do you have a Muppet Cup? Everybody should have a Muppet Cup. You need a nice reminder that you're a Muppet. That's all. You just got to consider. Are you a Muppet? The answer is yes. We've got our scary pirate mug, right? Full of some lovely tea, which is my special turmeric tea. Very good stuff. I got some Manuka honey in there. And then I've got a nice captain's mug full of Happy Tract Table Rock tea, because Table Rock tea is awesome. Yeah, let's consult our favorite tome, Beta Procrustes, Aphorisms from Nassim Taleb. I'll open to a random spot. To see if you like where you are without the chains of dependence, check if you're as happy returning as you were leaving. There you go. That's perfect. So there's it's been, other than the craziness around the so-called war, it's been pretty quiet ultimately in terms of news. Except everything's breaking apart, and all these old, 10, 15, 20-year friendships are allegedly, or, everyone's, oh no, you betrayed me. I never thought it would happen. I was like, you guys weren't friends. I don't, what did you expect different, really? So yeah, and then as we find more things to disagree about that are super important to us, like maybe a war in Iran, or maybe what's happening under cover of that, or oh, no one's talking about Ukraine anymore, but maybe we really should be, because Russia's scary or something. All this stuff is just going to get worse, guys. It's just going to be more chaos all the way down. It's not consolidation. The great revelation of the rise of the widow of Charlie Kirk, where it really wasn't great. It was actually kind of evil. And then that's going to continue. I mean, we're just stuck in chaos land, and one minute you'll be following this creator, and the next minute you'll be following that creator for your news. None of it will be news. We've had several faked news stories, and it's just, and then people are going, oh, the government faked this. It's like, well, how could you even know if the government faked it or somebody else faked it at this point? You can't even tell. The government doesn't even know what they faked and what they haven't. Like, things are getting worse, not better. Decentralization, you wanted it, here it is. And that's the result of basically the topic here, which is the lack of cooperation. We don't have cooperation to fall back on anymore, whether that cooperation is in the form of an institution, or that cooperation is an authoritative trust relationship, because trust and authority go together, by the way. And everyone's stuck on these simple concepts. I'm like, guys, these are real simple stuff. And separating things like trust from authority is never going to work, but that's how we got here. So I guess keep it up and we'll get more worser or something, because that's definitely going to happen. Um, so cooperation is important, and it's the thing that's missing the most. And that's why things are going to continue to get worse, because we don't even know what cooperation is anymore. So, do you hate the patriarchy? Uh, that's a rejection of cooperation. Do you believe in, you know, infinite genders, or do you believe there's even such a thing as a non-binary? That's a rejection of cooperation with nature and with others. Are you insisting on pronouns? You know, those things that people will use when they're not around, and so you won't know, right? That's obviously trying to control somebody. You're rejecting cooperation if you're trying to control somebody, kind of by definition, right? Upset at conflict, like any kind of conflict. I'm not talking about war or even violent conflict, just any kind of conflict. Well, the thing is, conflict is a signal, and it's how you learn and how you get better, right? That's a lack of cooperation. People who are perpetually nice because they don't want conflict or they want constant agreement, they're unable to cooperate. It may seem like the opposite, but no, you can't cooperate with somebody who can't push back or doesn't push back or won't push back. You can't cooperate with winsome people. That's all fake. That's LARPing. That's actual, like, I'm pretending. That's actual pretending, because they don't agree with you. They're just being conflict avoidant. Lying about the facts, claims without evidence, lack of cooperation. Like telling me something and then not providing the evidence. You're not cooperating with me. You're trying to dictate to me. If you were cooperating with me, you would provide me evidence and maybe even your chain of reasoning or something. That's cooperation. Telling me, there is no God because life sucks and there's suffering in the world, and a good God wouldn't do that. That's not cooperation. You're just preaching at me. I don't want to hear that garbage. You're not cooperating. And the thing is, cooperation isn't about agreement, because you can always feel like you've resolved the conflict or avoided a conflict through agreement. But all cooperation involves change, and all change is a conflict. It's at least a conflict with the past. You're changing something. So the thing that came before is whatever it is, and the new thing is whatever it is. And there's a change involved. So there's some kind of conflict, period. End of statement. Conflict, not bad. Conflict and change have to be together in some way. They're not the same, but also you can't separate them entirely either. Plus, to add someone or something, conflict arises. Maybe you have overlapping skill sets. Maybe one person's annoying. Maybe one person just doesn't want to do it, but you need them. All these things cause conflict. And the thing is, conflict is just not always negative. Or to the extent that it is negative, the upside should outweigh that. And in all cases, that's good cooperation. If you don't have any conflict, you don't have cooperation, you have a slave relationship. That's what you have. That's why, people were worried about slave revolts. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you're worried about that, that means you're not cooperating. And not everybody worried about that. And that's the thing. And as I discovered earlier today, I have to make this point. I don't know why. It's very weird, because you talk to certain people of a certain age and they got no problem with anything. Like, they get it. They're like, why are you saying this? This is dumb. We already know this. And then other people just have never crossed their mind. And fair enough. I mean, whatever. It's just bad formation, right? But listen, you cannot cooperate with a person. That's not possible. This is part of that flattening that equality doctrine. Like, I'm a person, you're a person, no cooperation possible. Because we're both on the same level of reality. We're on the horizontal together. And if we could cooperate, we'd have to be unequal. Well, if we're unequal, we're actually not on the same. See the conflict? And so you can help a person, but you can only cooperate with something higher, a higher goal or an aim. And that is what allows the acknowledgement of the space to cooperate, right? The space that affords the ability and the relationship of cooperation. And relationships are not conflict free. Creating a relationship is a series of negotiating conflict. Maybe you want to talk to somebody new and they don't, they have social anxiety. You're going to create a conflict, but you might make a friend. You might make a lifelong friend. That conflict, that temporary discomfort might be the best thing that ever happened to them. There's a conflict there for sure. You cannot navigate boundaries and have healthy conflict, right? Where you learn something, because conflict is how you learn, unless you've got something higher that you're oriented towards. It can't be about the person next to you or in front of you or behind you or in Africa or in Iran. It can't be that. There's too many things there. And you're not them. And they're a person, and persons are ridiculous and impossible and so complex. It's not even worth thinking about. You're not going to cooperate with them. You might cooperate on something with them present, but that's a different thing. And it may seem like a trick of language, but it's actually really important that we're all, and I do mean all, myself included, misusing the language constantly, because we're like, that's the age we're in, right? Everyone has been taught too much literacy and absolutely zero comprehension for too long. And it's a big problem. And the thing is, this idea of cooperation, of getting along together, of doing things towards a purpose, towards a shared purpose, sounds hard. It sounds difficult. First of all, you keep saying conflict. That's very scary. Okay, the reason why it sounds hard is because it is hard. We're all up the backsides of institutions. Do you know how hard it is to run a company? I do. It's nearly impossible. It's a miracle that we have any. Most companies fail within the first 3 years. And by most, I mean like 87% or some insane number. That's how hard it is to cooperate. Even when money's involved and people can make lots of money, it doesn't work. Cooperation fails. And I know there's way more than one reason why companies fail, and some fail because of money and blah, 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 on and on and on. I'm telling you right now, I've been in a company that was a $500 million with a B dollar idea. Google spent $300 million doing what we had already done. That was a couple of years after we had done it, by the way. Still didn't work. Everybody kind of knew it was worth, I mean, I knew exactly how much it was worth. They at least had an idea that it was worth a lot of money. Didn't matter. Cooperation didn't occur. And the thing is, this is a question of discernment. What you're going to notice if you go through the live streams in particular is that all the hard parts of everything are proper naming and then discernment. And people get upset at the proper naming because it forces them to do discernment. And that's the hard work. There's always the hard work. There's always discernment. You know what else is the hard work? Discernment. And other than that, it's discernment. Is it clicking yet? Very hard. It's actually difficult. We haven't been formed to do discernment. So discernment is always an issue. Keeping track of boundaries, your own, where you end and other things begin, and other people's boundaries, including the boundary of cooperation. I'm perfectly happy to cooperate as, we'll say, a chief technology officer in your company, but I'm not going to solve your marriage problems for you. That may seem like a trivial or obvious example, but it's actually not. That's not a random hypothetical example. It's a common problem, actually. That's why cooperation is hard. It's that's like written about in books. It's so common. People have such an issue with that. They're willing to talk about it publicly, which should be a big deal. Someday I'll figure out how to do that video. I'm getting closer, I think. You have to understand boundaries. You have to understand the history of what it is you're involved in and the history of the people that are involved in it. You don't want pedophiles watching your children as babysitters, right? Like that should be clear. I know these seem like obvious things. There are things people miss all the time. Did you ever try to run any application on your cell phone lately and find out it's got bugs? That's because they're not doing the simple work of testing before they ship. It's the world we're living in. It's all the easy work, the simple stuff that takes 10 seconds that everyone's known about for decades. That's what they're not doing. Right? They're not, washing the pan before they cook in it. Like these are the sorts of problems that we always have and that always cause all the other problems, with a few minor exceptions. You have to understand the history of the people you're involved with and the project you're involved with. If the project you're involved with is manifesting socialism, you look at the history of socialism and you say, I'm out, bro. I hope you can do that. There are people that can't even do that. The most obvious thing that cannot work, with the most research of anything that we know of that cannot work in terms of ways to organize societies. And yet people are still out there ignoring the history. Feminism completely ignored history. You should read Rachel Wilson's book, The Occult Origins of Feminism. It's all there, right? But people ignore it. You also have to pay attention to stated intent, right? That works two ways. George Soros will come right out and tell you that he thinks a global one world government is a good idea. He's done it. I watched it. It was recorded way before fakes on the internet were kind of a big deal. It wasn't an internet thing. So faking that would have been really hard. You just listen to him. This isn't hard. It doesn't have to be hard. You're making it hard. I get that. You don't want it to be easy because, oh my goodness, why is everybody missing the easy thing? Well, Constantine Kitchen talks to freaking Destiny. How do you have a conversation with that man? He's never told the truth about any. I bet every single statement that man's ever made is a complete lie. Like, I've never heard him tell the truth. Why would you have a conversation with a chronic liar and a degenerate with a long history of not violent followers? I mean, also violent followers, but like actually calling for violence left, right, and center and getting caught doing it. Like, this is all recorded. Why would you talk to that person? That's on you. Like, what are you thinking? And then action in the world. Oh, degenerate with lawsuits because he filmed people he shouldn't have without their consent, against their will, without their knowledge. Holy macaroni. And then you have to compare and contrast. What the hell is your organization doing versus what is their mission statement? That's a good ask. You can find out a lot about what's going on in the world just by figuring out if those two things match. People never do this work, though. They never do. Almost no one ever does that. And then when they do, like me, and they say, oh, no, I don't think so, people get all upset. I'm like, bro, the data's in front of you. You just didn't look. You didn't look. Oh, I'm evidence-based. No, you're not. You're ignoring all the evidence to be a socialist or to say, oh, we should be able to platform whoever we want. No, we shouldn't. That's insane. And worse yet, even if you get like, oh, stated intent, the history looks good, they're doing exactly what the stated intent is. I'm looking at it. It looks pretty consistent, pretty good, right? You still don't necessarily know right away. Let me tell you a tale to sort of demonstrate this about this thing that is best and most accurately and precisely described as a fake news virus scamdemic. Okay? And how to know cooperation. And the thing is, cooperation is very hard. This is not easy. Do you take an untested shot that is definitely not meeting any of the requirements for a vaccine at all, even a little bit, anyone's ever? Or do you go along to get along? Well, you look at what the people are saying. Oh, they're all liars. They all lied about masks. How do you know? Because I knew ahead of time, but you could have looked it up. There were always white papers on masks and mask usage. Always. You just didn't do the research. And fair enough. I get it. But also, you didn't do the research. That's on you if you cooperated with people who are lying to you. Oh, we're going to call it a vaccine. Why are you lying about it? Anybody can look up the definition of vaccine and see, right? And then they're saying, look, if we don't do the vaccine, we won't get rid of it. And it's like, but that's not how any vaccine has ever worked. Even if it were a vaccine, that's still a lie. So that's 3 lies. Are you going to listen to somebody who gets up publicly on TV and lies to you about 3 different things? I'm not. You can if you want. You can cooperate with that person if you want, but you get what you deserve at that point. I'm very sorry it's so hard that most people can't participate. I get that. And I get the betrayal. And I'm still hang them all publicly. Still, I'm not, that position's not going to change. They committed treason, clearly. It's not that hard. You're a government official. You're in a position of authority. You tell people to take an untested shot under a false pretense by lying in a position where you should have known better and you could have known better and you probably did know better, but it doesn't really matter because you should have and could have, and you didn't do the work, or you did and you're malicious. Either way, it's still treason and you still should be hung. It's not that hard, right? And we're still not there, right? Because we want redemption for people without even cooperation. So perhaps some contrast is required to help you see this. That would have been bad cooperation. Don't take a stupid shot that somebody lied to you about when they were lying to you about half a dozen other things at the same time. Why are modern relationships so hard? It just seems like 2 people cooperating. Well, if that's how you see a relationship, you're screwed. It ain't never going to work. Ever. Done. Finished. Over. Right? Because that's a flat way to think about the world. The cooperation becomes a legalistic or fundamentalist, because those are the same thing. Actually, all legalists are fundamentalists. And it's based on agreements. And it's based on this idea of tit for tat. Like, oh, you're going to provide this in the relationship, and I'm going to provide this relationship. You don't provide that relationship. I'm not going to provide this relationship. That's nonsense. That's not a cooperation. Right? Because a relationship has to exist for the purpose of something higher. And that's what affords the cooperation, that higher aim. Oh, I want to be with you to make a family. Now, maybe we can't have kids, maybe we can adopt kids, or maybe we can't have kids, but we can run a mission together and just help people. Like, there's lots of ways to do that, right? But we've reduced relationships to propositions about how things should interface and what procedures should be followed and how things need to be equally balanced. It's why when people talk about balance, it makes me want to throw up, right? Nonsense. Complete nonsense. Okay? This all ignores that relationships that both parties want to have together need to be couched in this higher thing. You can't talk about person A, person B, and thing C. That Where are we in space? It's got to be about something higher. It isn't about person A or person B, but it's about what happens when person A and person B cooperate. And look, a relationship is really hard because it's multiple types of cooperation going on, right? You got to cooperate about running the house. You got to cooperate about financial decisions to some extent, maybe a lesser or greater extent. I would prefer to never think about money personally, but it's never been my fate, right? So you have to have this constant give and take, these constant forms of cooperation within a relationship. Relationships are not a cooperation, right? There are several cooperations. And all of that has to mesh together. It's very abstract. It's very hard. If you reduce relationship to a cooperation between a man and a woman or something retarded, you're going to get a retarded result. Don't do that. That's why cooperation is hard. But the thing is, cooperation is the magical superpower you need and have easy access to. It's just called cooperation, and it really is a magical superpower. So, why is it such a problem for people? This is part of the flattening of the world. This is part of what we have been talking about: objectivism, materialism, individualism, which leads to a lack of the ability to do proper identification. If you can't identify the boundaries of things and properly label them, then how are you going to cooperate? How are you going to know what a good cooperation is and a bad cooperation? You cooperate with the Indian mystic who just came over and tells you wonderful things about how Jesus and Buddha are really the same? I hope not. But unfortunately, I'm not living in that world for some reason. I don't know why this is so hard. But it is hard. It is hard. It is hard. How do you combat those things? Well, I mean, look, we got a bunch of live streams about that. We just did them all. And we'll be doing more. But ultimately, it's learn to knit. You combat that by knitting things back together, by connecting them towards a higher shared aim, by creating quality relationships. Then you will have the magical superpower of cooperation. And that's probably going to involve you trying to cooperate a bunch of times and screwing it up because you suck. Because effectively, you're a Muppet. Have you considered? You should buy a mug. It'll help. The thing is, equality doctrine forces us to believe that cooperation is also a universal. It's like, oh, there's just cooperation everywhere. And cooperation is just something you pick and choose that you get to do whenever, wherever, however. The bottom line is you cannot cooperate with everyone, everything, all the time. Or even two things at the same time, you probably can't cooperate with. And there are things that you have to cooperate with, like the government, right? Otherwise, your life is going to be too difficult. You're going to be fighting that headwind constantly, right? So, understanding which things you must cooperate with, which things you can cooperate with, and which things you should cooperate with is super important. And once you get a feel for this, it's all welcome to cooperation. Right? Your life will go better because you won't be constantly fighting things and people for no reason. How do we get a sense for cooperation? What models can we use? What things can we observe? What things can we mimic? What things can we learn from through observation and mimicry? They're outside. I mean, actual just outside, unless you're in a city. Now we have two problems. Look, be in the world. Figure out what things are connected and not how they're connected. I don't care how things are connected in most cases. Some cases I do. But first, figure out that they're connected because people have a real hard time knowing what's connected and what's not. I mean, people are still saying social justice as though that's a valid way to speak English, even though it clearly cannot be. The how does not matter as much as you think. Accept the things that bother you. Oh, you can't have lions without having dead gazelle, because every once in a while a lion's going to kill a gazelle to eat. Yeah, that's going to happen. That's a connection in the world. You don't get to sever it randomly at will or at all, ever. You'll kill the lion, and the gazelles will get sick. So everybody dies. Good job. Don't dissect the world. And look, you have to learn to get along, to go along, because going along will always put you in a superior position to those who oppose everything, to those people that rebel all the time, to those people who would rather do it poorly by themselves than do it better with others. That's a pattern that you should look for. There's plenty of people in this world that would rather do it their way and have it fail than have any kind of success if anyone else is involved or gets any kind of credit. Extremely common in the land of narcissism in which we live. A lot of people make a lot of hay about these things lately. This came up in the Jonathan Peugeot, Mary Harrington talk on Socrates in the City YouTube channel. And I have a critique of that coming out. It'll be a while. We get a lot of videos, actually. I get a lot of recording done recently. So that's a two-parter, unfortunately. I don't know how. I have no idea how, but it's a two-parter. It's very long. But they talked about egregore, which I was very happy to hear because Mary Harrington gets it. She said the same thing I said about it, what is it, 2.5, 3 years ago now, whenever they started using occult terms in the sciencey world again, right? If you want some say in these hyper objects, as Dr. Vervaeke calls them, egregores, whatever you're going to call them, or something similar in ability to that, well, that's cooperation. Because distributed cognition requires cooperation. So you hear Vervaeke talk about distributed cognition. Now I get that. That requires cooperation, right? Or you could see somebody using like their consciousness congress, right? That was Pastor Paul Vanderklay's stuff, right? Well, that requires some form of cooperation. Like if nobody listens to his YouTube channel and no one gives him feedback on his videos, the consciousness congress thing doesn't work. There's a form of cooperation here. Maybe it's a good one, maybe it's a bad one. Different discussion. I don't care. But you can see cooperation everywhere. Right? Do you have electricity? Do you have internet? I know you do. Well, that's a bunch of cooperation. Sure, it's been reduced to a transactional financial thing. It doesn't have to be. Leaving comments on videos isn't financial transactions. I mean, someone may get some money for it, but I ain't getting any money on all the good comments I give people, or the bad ones for that matter, to be fair. I'm sure I give bad comments. Whatever. It's not a money thing. Still cooperating. If you're not cooperating back, I don't feel bad. I feel like I've done my part and I get all the points, so I don't care. Do you hate your job? You like proper cooperation. Like, why take a job you're going to hate? Like, figure it out. Are you worried about the world and things going on like far away? Cooperation is just for you. Concerned over some institution above you crushing your hopes and dreams? Maybe you should be. Solution, cooperation. The more you cooperate, the better you get. You can cooperate and remove those institutions from influence over you. Maybe even compete with them. I don't know. Depends how many people you can cooperate with and how well you can cooperate. And maybe your cooperation sucks, but theirs doesn't, and they can build a thing and you can just help them. And maybe that help is tiny. Maybe it's just going through and, clicking on buttons or something. I don't know. It's better than not doing that. So, how do we frame cooperation so that we can actually build something bigger than we are with more momentum than we have alone that can assist us to be better? First, we cooperate with a sip of tea. It's easy. It's a trick question. It's called trade-offs. I have a video on trade-offs. It's not that hard. What do you want and what are you willing to give up for it? It's the second part that's more important. What you're willing to give up is more important. And hopefully, your first answer to this question, and not your only answer, because you're going to have to give up more than one thing. Your first answer to this question was ego. If your first answer to that question was not ego, then try again. Okay. If your first answer to that question wasn't ego, the second time, I can't help you. Click off the video and go whatever you were doing before, video gaming, pasting yourself in Cheeto dust. Whatever. I don't care. Uh, I can't help you. And the thing is, because again, cooperation is hard, guys. It's hard. Very hard. It's hard to get people who will cooperate. It's hard for you to cooperate with people. People suck. Have you met people that are terrible? Oh my goodness. Trolls everywhere. All kinds of people going, what about this thing that happened in this place? Do you know anything about that? Shut up. We've got books to write. We have videos to do. We have board games to finish. So what if you can't find enough people with a similar enough aim? Then look, you're wrong about something important, or you aren't looking in the right place. Choose option 1 first, right? Because remember, you traded off your ego. That's the first thing you have to do if you're still here. Otherwise, it's just a click off. Refine your idea while expanding your willingness to adopt a larger view. Those things are not in conflict. They are the same actual process. I know we want to split the world up, and we can split it up, right? We could say, oh, we could refine my idea and expand it, right? We can expand my willingness. Sure. But those are the same thing, actually. They're just two aspects of the same thing. They're not in conflict. You can refine things while they spread out. You can do that. It doesn't seem that way. It's not intuitive, but it's true. It's true. What is it that I'm getting at? Oh, right. Because when you ask, what is it that I'm getting at? And your worldview is this big, you're never going to find it if you're wrong, ever. And you were already wrong because you had to ask the damn question. You wouldn't have asked the question if you already had the answer. You'd be like, oh, this. You have to expand the possibility space while asking that question over and over again. And then as the space expands, you're more likely to hit upon the answer. Oh, I didn't mean this. I meant that. Ah, that's refinement. Proper naming is super important. Part of the channel. Super important. Be precise in your speech. Dr. Jordan Peterson. How do I orient my cooperation? Find people who are already in a group cooperating, not the ones fighting in a group. There's almost every internet group is just fighting people. It's just people who have a similar enough ideas and want to bang their ideas around. They have no interest in cooperation. They have interest in personal narcissistic idea refinement so that they can wield it as a weapon. They want to get better with propositions, better with debate, better with argumentation so that they can force people to agree with them. That's 90% of everything on the internet. Sorry. I mean, I love the internet, but also, like, what are we talking about here? So I'll just give you an example. I do these Friday crypto calls. I've probably talked about them before. Look, guys, I hate crypto. Okay. Those people are clearly, actually, technically wrong about Bitcoin. Just flat out. I pointed out to them 1,000 times. Like, their theory of currency is wrong. Their definition of fiat is wrong and irrelevant at the same time. The way they think money works is just so childish. They think money is just like the way you buy bread or something. It's very sad. And they don't understand any of the technology. Of course, that's the thing I understand the best. And I'm just like, why are you talking? You're so dumb about technology. You shouldn't speak like about anything ever again. But I show up anyhow, right? And it's gotten me a bunch of opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise. I met the lieutenant governor. I talked to the mayor of Columbia, who remembered me for some reason from other events where I had been. I've been to the State House inside, which is beautiful, by the way. South Carolina is one of the prettiest state houses in the United States. I've talked to a bunch of reps. Sometimes there's a rep on the call. We have a guy on the call from Washington, D.C., who's one of the aides to, I don't know, one of the people in the Senate or Congress or whatever. I don't know. It's fine. He's a cool dude. And why did I do all this? Why am I hanging out with a bunch of losers who are talking about crypto? I have no idea what they're talking about and have been wrong about every prediction they've made since I've been on that call, probably every prediction they've ever made in their lives, because I was willing to cooperate with people who actually know how to cooperate, right? It doesn't matter if it's something I don't like or don't care about or whatever. And to be honest, they love me there because I push back on them and, keep them in their place a little bit. And they actually appreciate that, which is good. That's how you know they're good cooperators. Oh, here's Mark who hates these. I'm very upfront. Like, I don't think you guys know what you're talking about Bitcoin. I'm very polite about it too. But like, you guys are dumb and you're wrong. And, I don't tell them they're dumb, but I do tell them they're wrong about certain things. And they appreciate that. That's what makes them good at cooperating. That's why I can go there. Right? And they talk to me like a normal human being, right? Who doesn't believe in any of this Bitcoin stuff that they're doing. It's fine. They think it's better for them. I think it's better for them. I think it's better for me. I enjoy listening to people, and how they're confused. One guy on that call, it was last week, or it wasn't last week, it was the week before. My internet was out last week. I wasn't on the call. I think he said, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, he said, Bitcoin solves greed. And I was just like, what? Well, I got to work that into one of my live streams. Who would say such a thing? That it's so stupid? He's a really good guy too, but also, what are you talking about? You can't be serious. Loves Michael Saylor. I'm like, Michael Saylor is a greedy billionaire with lots of money. And oh, by the way, got in trouble with the SEC with his first foray into accounting shenanigans. I don't know if that's the guy you want to trust with the future of your Bitcoin currency thing, but you do you, right? So they know how to cooperate. They're happy to cooperate. They like having me there. If you don't like having me somewhere, maybe it's you. I'm just saying. And the thing is, once you get out into the world, and hopefully you can, and then you can look and observe and see how imperfect it is. Maybe see how it doesn't behave the way you expect or the way you want or the way that would clearly be better. I mean, clearly, duh. It would clearly be better if Bitcoin solved greed. Duh. It would be wonderful, right? You can realize that your ability to see cooperation is off, or perhaps just your expectation of what it's supposed to look like. Either way, just observing without judging the world can orient your cooperation. The key there is without judging the world. If that's too many words, without judging. You can just look and see how things are connected and say, this sucks. Oh, so the big project here is gardening. Sarah likes to garden, which is wonderful. We have 12 acres of land. She can garden all day long, put in whatever she wants. And I get to build, I get to cut down trees and then bolt them together and call it a raised bed. This is glorious. This is the best cooperation ever in gardening. Very upset because you can't just put all plants just in the ground and expect that to work. There's especially vegetables, right? They want to be indoors for a while. They want to sprout first in a nice, comfy environment, right, where they're cared for and coddled. And you've got little sun lamps. My house is full of sun lamps. It's ridiculous. And then they need to be taken outside and planted in this, in one of these raised beds that I built. Fine, right? But it's not straightforward. You don't just put the seed in the ground, make sure it's watered, and bang. Because the world is imperfect. And if you want to cultivate your plants, you have to do a bunch of things that conflict with what you would call ideal gardening, where you just throw out some seeds and they just grow. I mean, look at all the things outside that you wouldn't believe, all the things outside that just grow around my house. It's unbelievable. Most of them I hate and want to burn them with fire. But no, these things, if we want to grow them, we've got to go through freaking lamps and soil and solo cups and watering things. And then we take them outside and we got to keep the animals away from them. And we got to go put put the tomatoes on these stupid little stand. It's ridiculous. And we got to go out and like kill all the bugs that get on them, and it gets on and on and on. It's endless. But it's that cooperation with nature. And then when you realize people are that only worse, because people are worse, the only thing that's better than that is dogs. Dogs are better. People are worse. People are the worst. Of all the worser things, they're the worserest. And if you can cooperate with nature, if you can look at nature, you can get the patterns. You can figure out that you're cooperating, even though there's some rebellion, like these stupid tomatoes, man. The amount of care they require before we put them in the ground is dumb. And then after we put them in the ground, still more care required. Right? They're little rebels, these tomatoes. They don't want to just grow like everything else. Like everything else here, just grow. You leave the ground alone, things will grow in South Carolina. It's nuts. Right? Because everything's trying to cooperate. And look, once you realize you're in a larger world with lots of other forces, influence, and patterns, none of which you control, you start to see what's going on. You start to appreciate how hard cooperation is. So you can figure out how these things work, or you can get run over by them. It's up to you. And once you see them in nature, you can apply them to people, except people are worse. People are worse. People are worse. You can live in a harsh desert. You can live in some ridiculous, swamp. You can live in a nutty forest where the trees are so thick it's dark. You could live in the jungle, right? If you don't learn to cooperate with the environment you're in, you'll get run over. None of that will be as hard as cooperating with a person, though. And nothing's easier than cooperating with a dog. Dogs are awesome. Moral of the story, buy a dog. And the thing is, cooperation is not really optional, right? You have to cooperate. And maybe it's been reduced to a simple operation, like you pay your electric bill, you get electricity. That's wonderful. It's a miracle. You should treat it that way. You just click on YouTube and you get me screaming at you in a pirate outfit. What could be better? It's not optional to cooperate. You can't do things in the world without other people. Maybe those people are dead and they built your house or something, like they did mine. I didn't build this house, right? I cooperated with them. And maybe I cooperated with them by paying their ancestors money, right? Which is fine. And maybe I cooperated further by hiring people to, put in some hardwood flooring and get rid of the stupid freaking carpet, which was blue, but still. Blue carpet is still evil because all carpet is evil. So you're always cooperating with people anyway and with nature all the time. And if you don't go through the process of understanding how to cooperate and choosing what you are cooperating with, problems arise. In other words, if you're not actively participating in cooperation, you will be co-opted by something else. Cooperation will happen with or without your consent. You'd best know what you're cooperating with. And that's because the world is bigger than you are, much bigger. You want to buy Bitcoin? Michael Saylor is going to have a lot to say about the price of Bitcoin. And when he makes it popular enough by dumping all his money, or actually his shareholders' money, into more Bitcoin, the banks might get interested because they might want to stop him from doing something bad. Or maybe something good. I don't even know. Doesn't matter. I don't trust the guy. I think he's a scumbag. Also, that all happened. Like I don't like hypotheticals. If you're talking about reality, you need zero hypotheticals to talk about reality. By definition, by the way. Beware people who talk in hypotheticals. Until you start cooperating, the world will eat you. Maybe slowly, maybe quickly, right? It will assault you. It will destroy you without really much help. That's how the world is. That's how other people are. If you're constantly rebelling and being difficult, then they're not going to want to do things for you. They're not going to want to be kind to you. They're not going to want to help you. They're not even going to want to work for you for money. I've seen that tons of times. Not everybody's driven by money. In fact, almost no one is. And plus, without realizing it, you're already cooperating with the past. That's how you have all the things you have. It's called the past. The past gave those things to you in some kind of pay it forward cooperation scheme that you don't even know about because you don't recognize it because you're an ungrateful prick. You owe everything you have to the past. Everything, good and bad. I think on balance, it was good though, because I'm transmitting to any number of people now and in the future. Who knows how long in the future? Probably not very. I don't think YouTube's going to last all that long, but whatever. Maybe 10, 15 years. Who knows? Maybe longer, maybe 100. Doubt it. Always possible. Right? And a bunch of live people. I mean, that's pretty cool. The past gave me that. I didn't give me that. It's not that I can't code what YouTube does. Actually, I could. It's not that hard. But they built something, and that I can't do. So, it's there, and they already built it, and they already exited that, and now it belongs to Google, and Google's cooperating for free. They give me all this for free. This is great. And until you realize that, until you realize you're cooperating with the past and you owe it everything to everything, you owe it everything. You're doomed. You're doomed to be a narcissistic, arrogant, rebellious nut job who's making the world worse. No, really, actually, don't do that. There's no reason. There's no freaking reason. Now, the thing is, we'll call it a mere lack of cooperation, is not just done by rebellion. Like all rebellion is not lack of cooperation, right? You could merely be cooperating with a psyop. You could be an unwitting pawn, a dupe in a larger game. What do you think the UFO guys are doing? They're dupes in a larger game. And they talk about this regularly. They're like, we think the CIA released this on purpose to throw us off the trail. Oh, so you admit that you've been duped by a psyop by the CIA. What good is this exactly? Maybe you should stop doing what you're doing, and then maybe the CIA won't be able to dupe you, and then maybe you won't be duped because there won't be anybody to dupe. Maybe those people that tell you taxes are theft are the bad guys and use your resentment to their advantage. Maybe it's a setup, a stepping stone, a filter. Let's see who we can get angry and give bricks to people to throw and destroy their own neighborhood. Let's tell them taxations are theft and see which ones really embrace it. You don't think stuff like that happens on the internet? Got news. Got news. And if you did, right? What if you're just making cooperation by others harder for no reason, and they're cooperating with you anyhow, and you're just making their life difficult? Wouldn't that make you the bad guy? And the worst aspect of cooperating is how hard it is to cooperate or to know who to cooperate with. This is hard. I agree. It's easier to cooperate with your electric company than your neighbor, because your electric company will just take your money. That's it. Your neighbor might annoy you. And that's why economics is such a popular frame for understanding the world. It reduces all cooperation to cash. That's all. It's a flat, easy mode of understanding cooperation. It's a flat set of relationships. Everybody just does things for money, or whenever anybody does something, it's reflected in money. Neither of those things is true, by the way. The same with politics. Everybody just does stuff because they believe a certain way about how they should vote or whatever ideology. Ideology is greater than politics. whatever ideology or ideological frame they have, right? And, that's why when someone finds out you don't share their politics, they stop talking to you. Because once you don't have the politics frame in common with them and they only have the politics frame, and they find out you don't agree with them on politics, they can't cooperate with you anymore because they have one mode of cooperation, one relationship, one linear, discrete relationship to interface or interact with you, to participate with you. And if you remove it by revealing your politics, they're out. Terrible people, by the way, all of them. That's why these frames are dangerous and bad frames. They're terrible frames. Worst frames ever. Economics and politics. Oh, horrible. Nothing to do with how the world works. Definitely things in the world. They're just not causal. All right. And the thing is, single modes of cooperation won't do. It's all trade-offs. That means you cannot look at a situation, a group, people with a stated aim, a community, and be able to cooperate. Sometimes people are just doing it wrong, or they don't recognize your value, or they're lying about their aim, often without realizing it, but still, they're lying about their aim. And that's the problem, is that cooperation is multifaceted. Peterson might call it multivariate. It's a multivariate equation, right? John Vervaeke would say, oh no, combinatorial explosion. It's like, but this is easy stuff. Once you've gone out in the world, seen the difficulties of nature, observed a few people, realized they all suck, they're all terrible, worst things ever, and then figured out, oh, but they follow these patterns and we can cooperate with them this way and not that way. And we cooperate with these that way, but not this way, on and on and on. It's not that hard. And then you just have to be mindful. What are you giving up to get whatever you're getting out? And if all you're doing is giving things up, you're a doormat. You're getting walked over. That's not a cooperation. If it's a one-way relationship where one person's giving everything, there's no cooperation involved in that whatsoever. Cooperation, non-existent. So why is cooperation so hard? Because cooperation involves the two skills you lose with the loss of the ability to inform the world poetically. You lose the poetic information or the parabolic information. Boundaries are harder to see, if not impossible, and you can't have a sense for the quality of a relationship. That's the intimacy crisis. And because cooperation is all about seeing the boundaries and how you can relate to those boundaries. Without that skill, if that skill's weak in you, you won't understand cooperation. You won't even be able to see it. You won't understand why certain people are doing work for certain other people or are, volunteering for certain projects. Like, you won't get it. The number of people I know who volunteer because a certain person volunteers and they know that person is ridiculous. Not the only reason I've seen people volunteer, but it's the primary reason. Most of the people I've seen volunteer to do any kind of work, even just help somebody out with something or whatever, it was because somebody else was there and they were mimicking them. They were patterned after them. It wasn't for the thing itself necessarily, right? They wanted to cooperate on that thing because they saw an exemplification of cooperation that they also wanted to enact. And they didn't care necessarily what they were cooperating on, just that they could cooperate. Because we all want to cooperate. We know we need it to survive. Right? You're not going to live in the woods by yourself on your own very long. I don't care who you are, what survival skills you have. It's not going to happen. Right? And there's a few outliers, but they're not you, so I wouldn't worry about it. So the thing is, it's not like, oh, you give people boundaries and a bunch of quality relationships and there you have a universal solution to all cooperation. Right? No, because you still have to determine if you can cooperate, how to cooperate. But there's three things there. Is this something I can cooperate with? Right? Okay. Can I cooperate with it? Because maybe it's something you want to cooperate with, but you can't actually do it, right? You have to want to do it. You have to be able to do it. And then you have to do it some way. There has to be a how you're cooperating. And maybe because you're new, you have to start licking envelopes. I don't know. You got to start at the bottom so that people can build up a trust in you that you'll show up and that you can do anything at all. Because if you can do anything at all, maybe you can do something useful. But if you can't do anything at all, it doesn't matter if you can do something useful. And you may say, well, I can't do anything but this. It's like, okay, but that's going to be a problem because they may never get to the this. Sometimes they will, maybe, but most often they won't. And then you can't cooperate. You've got to be willing to give up, to show people that you can cooperate before you can actually cooperate. And if all you're going to do is threaten people or brag about, well, I'm a really good programmer, so I should be the lead engineer, that's not cooperation. It's not going to end well. Can you cooperate is important. Seeing something that you want to cooperate with is important. How you do that is important. The boundaries have to be in place. The relationships have to be available. Let me demonstrate. So, been a lot of dust up lately because there was a guy named Digital Gnosis. His real name is Nathan Orman. And he apparently just erased or hid all of his YouTube content because he was watching the Constantine Kitchen Destiny debate and basically saying that he wanted to stab Constantine because of the way he looks or something. It was pretty extreme. I saw part of the video. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. It was worse than you can imagine, and about par for the course for Destiny's followers. Now the thing is, I know Nathan Orman pretty well. We knew him 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, maybe. I don't remember exactly. A long time. Pastor Paul Vanderklay's crew on Bridges of Meaning also encountered him. And, he went to an estuary, the one in England, and sat in the back and didn't say anything. And, they were very protective of Nathan. The problem is Nathan had told everybody. This isn't a secret. It's a publicly available thing on a live video at the time, which apparently has since been erased. I don't know. Nathan Orman was in a mental institution. Okay. When someone's in a mental institution and they tell everybody publicly, I assume they're mentally ill. You could say, Mark, that's a bad assumption. I'll call you a retard and never listen to another word you say ever again as long as you live because you're stupid. I ain't got time. There's plenty of smart people to talk to. You ain't going to be one of them. Not hard. Okay. The guy had a mental illness. He had a psychotic break that required him to go to a mental institution. That's horrible. That person needs help. He went from fundamentalist Christian something, right, all the way over to fundamentalist scientist or something. Like, he was still a fundamentalist. He was just all about the science. He used to go around and tell people they were in cults. That's what he did on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server. I smacked him down pretty heartily without addressing him directly because I can get away with that stuff. I'm rather good at it, actually, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And he deserved it, and I was very kind about it. Like, I can psychologically break you. Don't worry. I've done it before. I'm really good at it. I've had to be very careful not to do that by accident. Very hard. Actually, it takes quite a bit of effort. Less when I'm live because I've got systems that bound me there. But man, you get on my Discord server and piss me off. I can make you cry for a couple days. That's not hard. I didn't do that with him. I was very, very, very cautious, right? Because a lot of the people in the Awakening for Meaning Crisis server had some mental troubles, according to them. Not I don't have to make up whether or not someone's mentally ill. They usually just tell me, which is I don't like that, but I guess it's better that I know that I don't know. Okay. He got, you know, pretty severely smacked down and was the first person I think to ever get kicked off that server because it was impossible to get kicked off that server. Wow. You could kidnap women on the internet and not get kicked off that server. I don't know why, but man, it's hard to get kicked off that server. But he did. He was the first one to accomplish it. Bravo. Should tell you something. And the thing is, back then we were still, cooperating with Pastor Paul Vanderklay's project, Bridges of Meaning server, and there was a lot of cutover, right? And we were very supportive of them. And we warned them and said, look, this Nathan Orman guy is no good. He's bad news. And, and to be fair, Jacob Federaci, at the time, he had a live stream. I said, look, Jacob, have you actually looked into this guy, Digital Gnosis? Like, have you looked at his channel at all? And he's like, well, no, why? And I'm like, well, you're kind of defending him or at least allowing other people to defend him publicly. But like his channel is full of anger and resentment porn. And like, I think he had like a huge number of subscribers. He was bigger than my channel anyway, bigger than my channel back then than my channel is now. I don't think I had a channel back then. And Jacob, to his great credit, this is one of the reasons why we, actually tried to cooperate with Jacob for so long. He went and looked, and he was like reading the titles of the videos and looking at thumbnails, going, "Oh my goodness, you're right." And I'm like, why do you guys defend people you don't even know, you don't even look into? You didn't look at the history and just started trying to cooperate with them. And quite honestly, listen, I'm just going to tell you, they made him worse. Okay, they just did. I'm sorry. Some people need to be isolated. Like if you get put in a mental institution, that is to isolate you because it allows you to be better. So if you don't keep those people isolated or re-isolate them when they need it, they'll get worse, which is what happened. So like this isn't hard. Like should be super easy, this pattern, but a lot of people get confused. And the thing is, when Joey was there running Bridges of Meaning with his original mission to create bridges, because he's the one that built the community, not Paul. Paul didn't build that community at all. Paul popularized it. Paul was there. Probably wouldn't have been anywhere near what it should have been or what it became without Paul. No question about that. It wasn't Paul's community. He wasn't running. He wasn't taking any responsibility for it whatsoever. Talked about responsibility before 3 times, by the way. I assume that Ixnat was talking about my last live stream, which was a year ago, almost, I think, exactly. That responsibility wasn't there. When Joey left BOM, we couldn't cooperate with them anymore at all because there's no one to cooperate with. The reason why Joey left is because they wouldn't cooperate with each other or with him. It's bad cooperation. So we wanted to cooperate. We tried to cooperate. Sally Joe sent them art, all these things, tried to, help them. And they just didn't want it. They didn't want to build anything at all. They didn't even want to build an app to help their estuary project. They were so rebellious about that. And it's fine. Like, that's their thing. But in the process, they made poor Nathan Orman worse to the point where the guy's actually so unhinged. He's physically threatening harm to people on the internet, to people he's not in the room with, in a country, because he's in the UK, where you can go to prison for that. That's pretty bad. Like, you've got to be in bad shape to be at that point. But that's what happened. So you got to be careful. Can't cooperate. Can't cooperate with those people. They won't let you, which is their purview, whatever. You do you, right? And the thing is, the reason we don't cooperate is often purely emotional and then later rationalized. And that's why people don't believe evidence. When they're presented with evidence of something, oh, it wasn't ICE that shot the guy. ICE wasn't even there, right? They have already found a logical coherence to their belief. So adding evidence, logical coherence is it's bigger than evidence, first of all, but it's completely immune to evidence. Completely. And I do have a video, a little animation. My doc animation is beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Alec. That's why it doesn't work. It can't work. Once you have logical coherence to what's in your head, to your belief, it's all over. You're not going to change your mind with new evidence. I mean, maybe a few people, but it's a vanishingly small number of people. Once something has been rationalized, their cooperation has been set. I'm going to cooperate with the people who are angry about ICE. I'm going to cooperate with the people who hate Trump. I'm going to cooperate with the people who love JFK. And then other people are going to identify, it's MAGA, MAHA, Trump derangement, psychotic leftist, whatever little labels they're going to come up with and overcomplicate the situation by adding more words to an already flooded environment. And also they're terrible at naming things, right? You cooperate with the left or the right or neither, right? Because, and this is the most important pattern of all, identification against is zero cooperation with anyone ever about anything. And because you can't actually do that, so identification against says, well, we're just never going to cooperate with anybody because we're identifying against things. We don't have an identity of our own that gives us a great deal of flexibility. We don't get to be judged because you can't identify something, you can't judge it. Fair enough, right? So we're just going to keep being this snake-like little cyclical Ouroboros tail-eating thing, right? But you can't be in the world and not cooperate. So you just end up becoming a pawn, getting co-opted, right? Getting used by something without even realizing it because you're too busy trying to eat your own tail. Identification against destroys people. So you may ask yourself, why are people confused about this stuff, about reality? It's a lack of cooperation. The only reason to be confused about reality is you're not listening to people who are perfectly happy to show you and tell you reality. That's it. It's not a magic trick. It's not a book you didn't read. It's your lack of cooperation. Why are there so many people out there that have questions about so-called big O ontology or the question of being or whatever? It's because without cooperation, you are rejecting being itself as a concept, not as a word, not as a term, not as a philosophical bucket of some kind, as a concept. Why do you have, or why does anybody have, an identity issue? Because you won't cooperate. Therefore, you don't have an identity and you can't have a proper identity because, as we have covered before in a previous live stream, your identity is determined by your relationship to something else. In other words, the mode of cooperation with other things. Are you the homeschool mom who goes to the PTA meetings and the school board, even though your kid's not in there, but you want the best for other kids? Are you the single widowed woman with 27,000 cats? Are you a crypto bro? Or are you one of these crazy trad cats? I don't know until I see you and the other thing and then the relationship. Then I know. I'm not the only one on the crypto call that doesn't believe in crypto. The other guy made a lot of money in it. I didn't make any money because I didn't invest in any crypto. He also doesn't believe in it. He goes quite frequently, though. I'm not the only one. Because cooperation. And he and I cooperate. So it's worked out great for me. Because we know our identity. We understand our relationships to crypto and to each other based on that. And the thing is, and look, guys, A lot of these insights is just my Discord server earlier today, like 4 hours ago in some cases. Um, Cooperation is how yield happens. We'll get the yield someday, not this day. For now, I'm just going to bookmark it there. And this is simple enough to understand. Things thrive in relationship, with relationship. Being is all about relationship, which is why identity matters. And the loss of identity is kind of a big deal. And that's why I did a live stream on it. And that relationship allows things to emerge in an ordered way. Because the thing is, and people are very confused about this, not all emergence is ordered. A lot of emergence is random. A lot of emergence is chaotic. And the issue is that things will emerge in a chaotic way. They can. That's not hard. It's going to happen. It's called entropy. It's inevitable, right? And that's less scary than when they emerge ordered but evil, because that happens too. Without you realizing that would happen at all. People don't realize things can emerge ordered but evil. That happens. It's like a real happening. It's a real thing. It's part of reality. So this emergence talk, those people are dangerous. Very dangerous. Emergence is not automatically good. Things, quote, coming into being, or however they're going to frame it, is not automatically good. Being is good, but everything that emerges is not being. That's not true. They're not the same word for a reason. It's not that hard. And the thing is, with these stupid equality doctrines everywhere, in an equal world, there's no reason to cooperate with other humans. You might as well prefer nature. And some people do. Like they're fine alone by themselves on the prairie, on the farm, whatever, in the woods, by a rock. Right? Why? Because nature is obviously bigger than you, and fighting against it is hard. And you can relate to that because it's bigger than you, right? If all people are equal, you don't know how to relate to that because all people aren't equal. But if you can't see it, and you're constantly being told, "Oh, yeah, we're just equal to everybody else." Like you don't even know if you exist. Because if you're equal to everyone and everyone's equal to you, you can't see anything. There's no contrast. It's all over. Equality doctrine is garbage. It just destroys the world. And the thing is, people in cities don't think nature's bigger than them because they aren't in nature. They don't understand yield because they can't, because they aren't in nature. They're the result of other people's yield, but don't tell them that. They don't understand any of that. So they expect everybody to rebel against nature the minute they come in contact with it because it's so imperfect and it sucks and it's dangerous. Like nature can kill you, man. Right? And so it makes sense to them that you should also rebel against nature like they have been doing by living in a city. Not all of them, not all the city people are like that, but boy, all the people that are like that live in cities. That can't be a coincidence. That help you make sense of the world? Because that pattern's everywhere right now. People in cities, oh, we can just grow meat. Why don't you grow a brain first? And then when you have one, we can talk. Until then, I can't talk to you. You're retarded. I had time for this. So what do you think video games do to your ability to cooperate? Especially with something like nature. How do you think if you engage video games all the time, you're going to understand cultivation, yield, where things come from? How are you going to have discernment for good and bad? Video games are linear, discrete little worlds. No matter what you put in them, you can say it's a first-person shooter, multiplayer, super world or whatever. It's still linear and discrete, buddy. It's still binary. It's still just code. If that's all you had, would you have discernment for good and bad? Of course not. Not a proper discernment for good and bad. How would you view cooperation? as a linear, discrete set of agreements that we verbalize to reach some end we cannot reach alone. Does this pattern sound familiar? Video game reality? Anyone? You see that everywhere. It's super bad. So, how do we resolve this issue of cooperation? First, figure out what groups, what communities, what institutions are out there, and then see what they are doing. Not what their mission statement is yet. See what they are doing first. Really look at the history of the organization. How old is it? People that are in it or founded it, what were they doing before? Right? It's like really important, right? Like if you don't know some guy like Digital Gnosis with a relatively large YouTube channel makes anger and resentment porn, you might be a PhD scientist like Dr. Vervaeke and actually talk to him and then realize he didn't know what he was talking about, never read a single paper of yours, but is perfectly willing to critique you publicly. Totally avoidable. What did they do before? If you didn't see Digital Notes as self-destructing, you're an idiot. I'm sorry, but you're an actual idiot. Whatever you're doing in your life, you need to not try to judge people because you're really bad at it. This was obvious. You were warned, not just by me, man. Like lots of people saw this. Lots. If you didn't see it, you're bad at that. Don't ever try to do it. Ever. You're really bad at it. It was really obvious that this was going to happen. Flat out said it. I've said it on live streams 5 years ago. You can go look. There's a history there. Contrast that history with the present. And then look at their mission statement. Look at what they say they're doing. Talk to them. Consistency matters. And yep, sometimes there's no history. And you have to try to cooperate with Pastor Paul Vanderklay, for example, and fail and learn the hard way. Because you never know who you can cooperate with. It's really hard to tell. And all the elements can be there for having a group that you cooperate with, and it can still fail. And maybe that's no one's fault. Maybe it's the zeitgeist, the conditions, that there's all kinds of reasons why things fail. And sometimes you just have to learn the hard way. Oh, we can't cooperate with this clown. This person's not a cooperator. You'll notice I never tried to cooperate with Grim Grizz because I knew his history and not going to cooperate with convicted felon drug addicts who have previously stolen money and entire YouTube channels from people, or at least attempted to. I'm not going to try to cooperate with a guy like that with a long history of that behavior. Call me crazy if you want. You think the Digital Gnosis blow up was something? Wait until you see what happens next. It's not that hard to figure out who to cooperate with and who not to cooperate with when you use that formula. And there is a formula. Rewind. I just gave it to you. And the thing is, after you've done all that research, after you've done that work of looking at the history of the organization and the people involved, of trying to figure out whether or not what they're doing is in alignment, and then figuring out what they think they're doing or what they tell people they're doing and figuring out if that's in alignment, right? Then you can kind of get a sense for these things. Okay, well, that's a safe person to cooperate with, not the pedophile babysitter. Yeah, no thanks, right? Once you find those groups that you want to participate in, ask them if and how they can fit you in. Don't try to add the value where you think you have the most to offer. Prove yourself first. You have no history with them. Even if you have a history, it's not with them. The best businesses in the world fail because they change one member out. I've seen it. You can vet them, but they cannot vet you as well. So it's easier for you to vet an organization than it is for an organization to vet you. and be patient with a new group because proof requires work. And maybe you'll do that for a couple of years, maybe 3 years, and it will still fail. We are a testament to that. Many of us in the Mark of Wisdom Navigating Patterns world here, met multiple people, what Eric Weinstein, or it's Pastor Paul, or it's Federaci, or any number of people, John Vervaeke, on and on and on. Lots of people, right? Time is a key factor. Things do not happen instantly. Writing a book takes a lot of time. It took a lot of cooperation, which is messy because people are imperfect and you're imperfect and everything around you is imperfect. It's not a video game, which is why you need to cooperate. To get better, you need cooperation because you're imperfect. And the other person's imperfect, and it's always possible your imperfections will multiply, but usually not. Betterment, the striving for perfection, requires cooperation. Cooperation with the past, cooperation with an aim, and cooperation via the relationships with one another. That's how it works. And if you do that, we'll say successfully, if you're able to do that, then the thing that happens is you'll just be better. And the world needs you to be better. In order for the world to be better, you need to be better. And if you get better, the world gets better. It's not that hard. It's not hard. It's really not that hard. All right. Whew, that was exhausting. When I saw the amount of notes I had added this afternoon, I was dismayed. But an hour, less than an hour and a half. That's not bad. Let's see what we got. We have a Yar. Yar, Christopher. Oh, by the way, Christopher got me my next 3 or 4 videos. So live stream topics. So cooperation works. Interdimensional lizard. Oh no, interdimensional lizards. Crypto bros. Yes, Sally, the crypto bros. Denise, good to see you. Is cooperation more than simple interaction? Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the problem. Some forms of cooperation have been reduced, like paying your electric bill, right, to a simple interaction. Although, if you've ever gotten electricity in a new place, that wasn't so simple, right? That's not quite simple, and usually that goes horribly wrong for a lot of people. I don't understand why people would need the government disclosure of UFOs. I don't know if you saw, Denise, my Epstein video. These are the same people that thought that the government organizations that would be the ones to punish people would start punishing people as the result of releasing the documents that would prove that they hadn't already punished those people. And I was like, these people are just really dumb and they're really bad at logic. But yeah, these people about the UFOs are really bad at logic. You want to freak them out? Just ask them well, what do you think's going to happen when they release the UFO files and you find out little green men have been manipulating the government since 1962, or pick whatever random date you want, it doesn't matter. And then what's going to happen is they're going to say, well, and you say, but it wouldn't change my life at all. Nothing would change. And they flip out the minute they realize that. They absolutely lose their minds. It's hysterically funny. It's quite fun. I mean, if you're going to troll somebody, troll those idiots because they totally deserve it. Totally deserve it. Completely. Them and the crypto bros. Next on, one of the few things that can be learned from chess is the value of pawns. Yes. Pawns are very valuable. And if you think you aren't one, you probably are. And that's a big problem. You better know whose pawn you are. Let me put it that way. And Sally Joe, lots of people are blind to their own aims. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the problem. People are blind to all kinds of things. Ixon, people follow people. Yes, they do. Mimicry is coming up. I'll have to do a whole Gerard thing. So, Father Eric, this isn't the Soviet Union. No, it's not, but maybe it should be. Denise, depends how long they were in. Some people get put in mental place by the really sick ones. Yes. I was in a mental institution is not a good measure. It's not a good perfect measure, but it's a really good measure. And if they say I was mentally ill and that's why I went to the mental institution, then it doesn't matter. They were probably mentally ill. Um, I actually helped my ex-husband's second wife get out after he and his mom put her there so he could run off with soon to be third wife. That happens, but those people don't run around on the internet admitting that they were mentally ill and put in a mental institution because they were mentally ill. Just saying. Conditions matter. They planned it for when she was drunk and upset. Oh yeah, well, because she did not speak much English. She spoke Icelandic. Oh geez. Oh, good for you. You got her a lawyer and wish her good luck. There you go. Ex-hubby and mama got a bit mad at me for that. I bet they did. I bet they did. Well, some people are evil and no one wants to talk about that. They were perfectly happy to make more evil in the world by coddling digital gnosis for no apparent reason. And now they're talking about me again. I'm like, can you guys just I don't know what they think I did wrong, but very funny. The VOMers talking about. I'm like, I'm trying to get rid of you people. Can you please go away? They won't. Father Eric, the latter rationalizations would really get you in trouble. Acting on emotion can be so easily forgiven if you repent. Right, exactly. Well, a lot of people don't have the repent thing, and that's a problem. And emotion is how we're driven. We just want to keep it in check with our rationality. It's really hard to do when you think you're rational and you ignore the emotion. And to be fair, the stupid psychologists make that worse. They're really good at making things worse. Denise, I didn't need to know all that, but about the 10 minutes, one vid was enough. Yeah. Well, what makes me mad? Someone like PVK promoting him into influence, right? That's the real issue. Yeah, and giving them content. Look, digital notes in particular, right? So it had about a year since at least a year since he had been on the server, and on the Awakening from Meaning Crisis server, and someone from BLM went on one of his open mic live stream things and argued some theology with him. And because he knew her from BLM, he brought me up. I'm like, bro, I haven't talked to you in a year. I haven't thought about you in a year, that's for sure. I haven't thought about you since he came and left. That's how dangerous it is to give these people any oxygen, right? And yeah, I mean, it's worse with Graham and it's worse with some of these other people that he promotes. And that's the problem. Like, these people have problems and they have histories that are not good, and you wouldn't want to promote them. Like, I don't know why you would promote, but that's irresponsible leadership. And that's the problem. It doesn't matter that you don't want to lead or you're not trying to lead or whatever. When you have a following, however you got that following, you have a responsibility instantaneously. And when you're winsome, you'll accept anyone. And when you accept anyone, the people that are going to go to you are the people that can't go anywhere else. So you're scraping the bottom of the barrel on purpose, deliberately, knowingly, with forethought and malice. And what you get is malice. Denise, I think PVK collects mental cases to make weird teams. Well, he doesn't make weird teams. They all just whatever. Machiavellian pastor. Yeah. Well, I don't know. They're doing what they're doing. I don't think they understand the side effect, right? If you let everyone in, but they don't even understand that they talk about psychology. Like, do you guys read any psychology? They don't read any psychology. It's clear to me. They've never read anything about psychology, right? Leaderless groups get taken over by the most psychotic members in all cases, fairly consistently. Like, it's almost inevitable. And they have leaderless groups. They build leaderless groups over there. They do it constantly. That's why I call them those little cults, because they're constant. And they are. Like, we've seen them build cults and encourage cults, both their own and others. And then they can go, oh, it wasn't me. Nathan Orman threatened Constant Kitchen. I had nothing to do with it. I don't even talk to the guy. No, you guys contributed heavily. And shame on you for it. And if you add, confess, repent, and do penance, you be fine. But no, you're all going to hell and you're going to stay there. So, justice for everyone, baby. Let's do this. I'm fine with it. Are you? They're not fine with it. They might be fine with it now. They won't be fine with it later. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, look, you got to be really, really careful what you put out in the public, especially if you don't know who you're putting it out to, right? You don't know. You got to be careful with that. All right, that catches me up. If you want to join me, I have posted the link. And Justice for All, excellent album. I saw that in concert actually back in the day in what was it called? Was it called the Providence Civic Center? It was in Providence, Rhode Island. I think it was called the Providence Civic Center back then. So yeah. Uh-oh. Now we get trouble. Father Eric, good to see you, sir.
Well,
How are you
I'm
doing?
trouble.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
trouble now. Oh, man.
You're definitely, oh, no, now you got more trouble.
Oh,
geez.
well, what you need to
Backing
do
up.
if you want to deal with this, Mark, is you just got to go cooperate with us and grow a beard.
Yes.
No, you don't want to see that. Even when I had a goatee for a few years.
I didn't say goatee. I said a beard, you know. Anyway.
If you saw the goatee, you'd know why I didn't want to have a beard, but sure.
Well, Mark, I'm here to cooperate. What can you do with me?
Excellent. Well, I mean, we could discuss that little diagram and why it matters. I mean, Castle gave a shot at it, and I was like, well, that was a good try, Castle, but now he has since given up. So we'll try again. Sally's giving us some good reconnaissance from the Homath Discord server, so we're learning a lot. Yeah, they said some interesting stuff. I'm still chewing on and going, like, you've got to be freaking kidding me, right? And yeah, it's good reconnaissance.
So like a Minnesota interesting right there, you know.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yep. Yeah, there's an engagement that people have, and now that she said it, I think I'm not sure. I think I can see it elsewhere. When you're engaging people with a first order abstraction, not a second order abstraction, not a difficult one like cooperation, but a first order abstraction, they can't see the connection at all, and they want citations or an article and I'm like, how interesting. So yeah. Oh, let me take this. Sally Joe M. Cooper. Can't cooperate with people? Got to cooperate with goals? Yes. And stuff whole outlook broken again? Yes, you can't cooperate with people. People are complicated. I can't cooperate with Father Eric. Oh. He even tried to get me to cooperate with him when he did mass in my house, and he gave me these instructions that were so unbelievably wrong that I couldn't even fix them. I'm like, I got lost again. That's not my fault. He gave me instructions. This still is, it was wrong too. I'm like, oh my goodness, I cannot stand this. I tried.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's easier to just, it's just easier to get some extra practice in there. And a lot of it will just come to you, naturally.
Well, it's
you gave it more than one shot. Yeah.
That's the mimicry.
We need more than just Mark in there.
Steps. No, you need steps, because people aren't going to go someplace overwhelming. If there's too much going on, they'll just beg out. So that's how I was talking about, like the thing that Homath does is he gives you like, here's object A and here's object B and here's the connection between them in little kid speak. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but also let's be honest, this is for 3-year-olds. It was just very old 3-year-olds, but still actually just 3 years old. And yeah, it's interesting to me that people don't see what a big problem. Like, no, we've got to form 30 and 40-year-old children as if they're 3 from that all the way down the ladder, like from that far down, and take them step by step with cartoons. Like actual cartoons. Then they'll
but Mark, the responsibility video that I mentioned was actually, it says it was from 2 years ago. It was like between participation and hallucination in the live stream.
It was 2 years ago? All right. Well, I got
Yeah.
the wrong one. You have to give me the link.
Okay, I'll do that later.
Or send the link to Sarah, better yet, because she'll
Oh, yeah.
extract it. And I got to get them all done anyway. So we'll do all the responsibility ones. Because I'm going to take them all and throw them in the silly AI and get summaries so I can figure out all the things I've talked about. And because the
Right.
the
Yeah.
bigger AI project is going to take another 3 weeks or 2 weeks or something. So, but when that's done, then we're going to rock and roll. So we're going to have a hell of a tool. It's going to be great. That's going to be great. Gustav's is doing great work. So yeah, we'll have that. We'll have a tool, and we'll be able to apply it to other things like Mosaic Arc will be next, and maybe at some point we'll get around to Peterson, Vervaeke, PVK, whatever. I want to do some additional filtering on that because most of PVK's stuff is not relevant, but his good stuff is really good. Like it's just like
Mhm.
his good stuff is so good, we really shouldn't try to do without it. Like that's the problem. But we will, we'll get their cooperation whether they want to give it or not. Like we know what we're doing. We've done this before.
We have ways of making you
We have
talk.
ways.
Might have something to do with the fact that you speak endlessly into a microphone on YouTube and it's all recorded
Yep.
in at least 3 different places so it can be real.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
So-
What'd you think, Father? Do you have anything to add to
Well,
cooperation? Did you learn anything?
I didn't show up. You linked intimacy with cooperation and inability to perceive boundaries and to understand the quality of a relationship. It is really nice that we could talk about all these things, but like that stuff's only going to come by doing. So
Mhm.
hopefully we can get the wheels and the dirt on the doing.
Well, observation and then participation, because
Sure.
that's why Girard is so popular with a lot of people, because the mimicry piece is the missing link. Like the
Mhm.
mimicry always comes first,
Mhm.
and but it doesn't always steer the boat like Girard implies, right? Because you can try to mimic Elon Musk, and when you figure out you can't, then you'll move.
Well, you'll mimic somebody and like, oh boy, that did not produce the result I was expecting.
Exactly.
I won't do that anymore.
Exactly. Like I can mimic Michael Jordan all day long, but
You're not going to be able
I
to
love
dunk from the
basketball.
free throw line.
I love basketball. Well, I'm way better or I was a way better.
No, dunk from the free throw line.
No, I
The
can't
part
do
with-
any dunks.
The-
Right. But I'm a
part
way
where the
better.
kid came up to Michael Jordan and asked him if he could fly, and then was like, might as well like that's silly. And then he watched the video of himself dunking from the free throw line. He's like, well, I can get where you would say that.
Yeah. And it's a long way. That's a
Yeah.
long way. But yeah, he did. He pushed off from like maybe tiny part of his foot was across it or something, if I remember the video. And yeah, I was like, what the hell is that? Yeah, might as well have wings at that point. But in terms of shooting, I was better than him at that. Lots of people were better than him. That's the interesting part from that particular point on the court, right? But yeah, he could do these crazy things and get to places that I'm not tall enough or strong enough.
It's nice to just be able to know that. Hey, just it's a word on cooperation when things are actually going well. Like when you're embedded in a mostly healthy group of some sort that's actually accomplishing the goals that you hold in common. It's just the best. Like I'm not going to say that there's nothing better than it, but it is well worth putting up with other people to have an opportunity to cooperate with them. So, you get a lot of the negative side from Mark, but there is the positive side there.
Yeah.
I have the best job in the world, and I get to cooperate with my friends in service of God. Like,
well, that's the thing too. It's very funny because a lot of people are confused about this, but a lot of people would tell other people, hey, you can work on the projects that we're working on, even back when we were on the Awakening from Meaning Crisis server, without cooperating with any particular person. In other words, you could choose which person you wanted to cooperate with, and that could work out. And it did. Like, but some
Okay.
people were like, well, this person's in the group, so we're not going to do anything with this group ever.
Mhm.
Right? That's like the BOM mentality. That's one of the reasons they can't get anything done. It's not the only reason. It's one of the big reasons, one of their big excuses, right? Is they're like, well, that person's involved and I don't like that person, so I'm not going to cooperate with any project they're on. That's a very common problem with a lot of internet.
You have to have a really big group for that sort of thing to
Oh no.
actually
No.
work.
No. You got to understand. I know people deal in averages. Averages don't work. The real world is full of clusters. If you have a cluster of snakes, like you do on BOM, there's a cluster of snakes. This is like a pit of snakes. It's a pit of vipers, an actual pit of vipers. Very small groups are impossible because the snakes don't like each other. That's basically what it boils down to. And that's fine. I mean, we recognized that. But, a bunch of them came over to our side and did, work with us. So I don't care. Like, I'm fine with it, right? Like those people we're still in touch with, and we still like meet them occasionally at events and stuff. And it's fine. They're the ones that aren't having events and getting along. So I don't care. Like that's their business. Not my. That's why I want to just get away. Like, can you guys go away? But no. Once the snakes got their little fangs in you once, they won't leave you alone.
Yeah. So I'm a little lost on the point you were making about, I only want to cooperate with these people.
No, but that's what they're like. I mean, that group in particular. There's lots of internet groups like that where they
Right. But if I'm following correctly, you were cooperating with something where it was actually working. Did I hear that right?
So on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis server, where they hated Mark and Manuel all the time, like they would just do ridiculous things. Like we had 5 or 6 voice channels, and Manuel and I had a voice channel we preferred, and we'd hang out and we'd talk, and other people would come in and out and whatever. And people would occasionally come into the channel. There'd be 4 or 5 people there, and we'd be having a spirited discussion, and they'd be like, well, you guys are using up, all the oxygen in the channel. And we're like, well, just go to a different voice channel and have whatever conversation you want. And then they were so rebellious. They were like, no, we want this channel. That's like, well, too bad. Like, that's not. And occasionally Manuel and I would leave. And that person would be in that channel alone because everybody else was there to hear us or to interact with us. Right. See, they just would not cooperate. And they were unhappy when other people would cooperate, right? But so Manuel and I, early on, were like, religion that's not a religion? I don't think so. Like from minute one, we were like, nah, bro, no, absolutely not. However, that was my community. And they wanted to do projects around Ritnar. So Manuel and I both of us took our time and went over to their stupid project and helped them run it. Like we were like physically the ones taking notes for them and letting them assign tasks. All we were doing was taking notes and setting the pace of the meeting and stuff. Why? We hated Ritnar. We thought it was a bad idea. Like we thought it was actually like this has potential to be dangerous, but it's our community and we wanted to cooperate with the community because that's what you do. That's what you do. That's the right answer. It may not always be the right answer, it may not remain the right answer, but that was the right answer. And so the fact that, some of those people were difficult and they didn't know what they were doing and they were doing something that, we weren't really too keen on didn't mean anything to us compared to the cooperation. It's very important for us to cooperate, but they would not reciprocate that, right? They had a hard time participating in our stuff because if somebody came up with a new practice or wanted to try something, like Manuel or I, and usually both, were there. We would just show up. We would make time and we would show up, and they would not reciprocate, and that was fine. We could possibly care less. That was our server. We left, that server blew itself up immediately. It was immediately destroyed. Right. So whatever. Like it's fine. It's too bad, right? BOM's the same way. Like they're the same way, right? Except they didn't, once Joey left, they didn't have any strong leadership. So it's all chaos over there. It's all chaos all the way down. And that's fun. Like, I'm not mad, but like they're the type of people that if certain person's involved, they're not going to be on the project. Everything else doesn't matter because they think cooperation is cooperation with a person. And then you can't square that when you have a group of people, right? Because then your cooperation is the cooperation with every person in the group. And that means if there's one person in the group you don't like for any reason, you won't cooperate with the group, which makes no sense except in a flat world. And they live in a flat world because they're a little retarded. I mean, they're just not, these are not the high IQ people they think they are. They're the nitwits that think they're midwits or slightly above midwit. And they're actually all nitwits, almost all of them anyway. It just is what it is. Like, it ain't my fault. Like, maybe stop being a nitwit. I don't know. I don't have a solution to that. But that's why they have no cooperation, why they don't have things like websites, and they don't do articles like Symbolic World. They don't have events. They don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, and there's no hierarchy there as well. It's
right.
Leaderless groups. Yeah, I don't see anything good coming from that. It's I'm a big fan of the 1983 Code of Canon Law. I think there's a lot of good things, good tools in there that we could use, but there is one thing in it that it just seems utterly useless to me, and I hope I never get within 1,000 yards of it. And that would be priests governing a parish in solidum.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it's so funny, right? Because you can't help yourself. Like, you really can't help yourself. It's like, oh, all three of these priests have equal rights to each other, and like if one begins a process, the other ones can't override. And one of them will be appointed as a moderator. You just can't get around it, can you?
Yeah.
And at that point, why don't we just have a pastor and parochial vicars? The normal way that this works. And so it's just, somebody had a bright idea and it made it into the code. And the nice thing is that it can just sit there unutilized and it won't hurt anybody. But I remember we had a priest of a certain generation that was teaching us about that section of the code. And he was all about it. And none of us really. I mean, he taught us a lot of good stuff. And we just didn't listen to him on that point. And a couple other points where we're all just sitting there like, yeah, just cut around that bit. The rest of this stuff is good.
That's the thing. I mean, cooperation isn't about doing everything somebody else wants. That's obedience and being a doormat, right? Cooperation is about this dance, this negotiation, this set of trade-offs, because it's always going to be like I said, we hated Ritnar. We took pages of notes on Ritnar, pages for those people that did nothing with them, by the way. And it's sort of ironic because Jonathan Peugeot's Symbolic World has not been around half as long as Pastor Paul's stuff has, right? Or really, it's Joey's Jordan Peterson meetup. Isn't it? Right? It's the Jordan Peterson meetup. They don't want to call it that because then they'd be beholden to Jordan Peterson, and we can't have that. That's way too structured for those idiots. So they just deny it every time you point it out to them, no matter who you are. It's not just a me thing. And that's, it's like, well, you guys don't like to cooperate. You just can't cooperate. You're too arrogant and you're too stuck in your own head and you're too much of a perfectionist and a fundamentalist. And, you just want to evangelize with the winsomeness. And, look, it has consequences for poor digital gnosis. The poor kid, like, that's horrible. He might get arrested now. I don't know. Like, whoa.
Yeah, UK is not the place. That is not a free speech player versus player zone there. That's yeah.
And that video of him doing that was picked up by Gold.
Ooh.
So Gold did a commentary on Nathan Orman's video where he's physically threatening Constantine Kitchen. This is not a good situation. Like, this is a really dangerous situation for the kid.
Why did he do that? I wasn't there. Why did he do that?
I don't know. I think I mean, look, when you've got a degenerate psychopath like Destiny, which like nobody wants to admit it. Destiny's a degenerate psychopath. Do you know when he wasn't a degenerate psychopath? Maybe when he was 2, but like, I'm sorry, there's no evidence that he's been any different. And Nathan Orman, zero evidence that he has never been, that he's been anything but mentally ill. Zero. I mean, maybe when he was young or something, but maybe he was born that way. I don't know. I don't have any evidence that he's ever been well. So like, like all the evidence says these people are not well people, and we're giving them very powerful tools of transmission. And then other idiots, like it's Constant Kitchen, like I'm not a fan of this guy at all. I think he's a moron for lots of reasons. So he goes and has a discussion. Why are you having a discussion with somebody who's a degenerate with multiple lawsuits because they did like illegal things, right? Who does nothing but lie? Like if somebody has a good point, that's great, right? Meanwhile, there's plenty of people on Twitter, on YouTube, with excellent points of discussion, and they get no time from Constant Kitchen or whomever else.
Wouldn't it be wouldn't it the idea at least be that you want to talk to Destiny's audience?
Yeah, that would be the idea, but his audience is never going to change because there are a certain type of people. And if you don't understand that, like I get it. They don't actually understand that, right? They didn't understand it with Sam Harris, right? The Sam Harris Peterson conversations, 4 of them, didn't have the effect they thought it would have. Either side, by the way, right? The Harris guys were like, oh, a whole bunch of Peterson guys are going to come on our side. And the Peterson guys were like, oh, we're going to get all the Sam Harris guys. And nothing like that happened at all. And it's not, maybe they didn't get a few or whatever. They probably did, but that didn't happen. Well, why do you think it was going to happen here? But because they're not paying attention to audience. If the person that they're following is a crazy, narcissistic psychopath that is also a degenerate and does nothing but lie, once the lies have been rationalized, you're not changing those people's minds. That's not happening. Now, maybe you could get them all in one place and put them somewhere safe, like a mental institution where they belong. But honestly, like nothing else has ever worked historically. So I don't know why you think something else is going to work. Like, I don't get it. How many times do you have to make that mistake before you figure out that ain't the way it's going to work ever? Because it's not the way people are.
Mm-hmm. I've always thought that it is an impious thought. It's a horribly impious thought for a priest to have. But if I was going to have a conversation with, say, Sam Harris, I would we would get to the point where we're pretty down the rabbit hole on the free will thing, which he's extremely wrong about, and I would, maybe I'd just break his nose, and then
that would do it,
and then be like, I didn't break your nose.
Mm-hmm.
There's no I here. There's no personal responsibility here. There's no capacity for me to ever have done anything. Like the breaking of your nose was preordained from the time of the Big Bang. This is just chemical reactions playing themselves out in time. I don't know why you're mad at me. That's completely irrational. Maybe you need to go meditate, and get some of your rationality back.
Now I know you've been hanging out with me too much. That's excellent.
Oh, I've had these thoughts long before I met you.
Yeah, but my joke's funnier. Roll with me. It's my live stream. Come on. Give me a little bit.
So, short of risking battery charges, I'm not sure it's worth your time.
True. Sally Joe, if you put the physics in it, the psychos, sorry, in a mental, this thing is hell I'm reading. I got to tell you, in a mental institution, then live stream the people who call that abuse of mental ill. Yeah. Well, I mean, see, Jacob talked about this, right? The lol cows, because he thought that was new. And, I just discovered lol. I'm like, lol cows have been around a hell of a long longer than you have on the internet, buddy. Right? This is not a new phenomena. That's what that is. That's what lol cows, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them are just hey, let's watch the mentally ill person. We'll give them a huge YouTube channel. They'll keep being mentally ill indefinitely. We'll get free entertainment forever.
I really wonder if you know what you're talking about.
Well, I know what I'm talking about. I've got a long day tomorrow and a long 11 weeks. I need to go to bed. Good night.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, in the early days of the internet, when the lockdown started, that's what they were doing. I mean, it's not like this is a secret.
You're speaking as if there's a clear. You're speaking as if there's a clear line between what is being referred to as the mental institution, which unfortunately in many parts of this country those things don't exist anymore because they eradicated them, and now they're looking at what happens in the street. But there's not a real clear line between these things, and the reasons people get put in them, particularly if it's involuntary, can frequently be anything but a negative thing for that person. All you need is somebody who has risen in the corporate world because of having a severe narcissistic personality disorder that the corporate executives find very useful in an executive secretary. You need somebody like that in a small town, and all of a sudden, it's like a grade B horror movie for who can get thrown in. And the psychiatrists who receive these people in a state of some kind of crisis, when they sort through it and they say, you know what, this isn't the crazy one. You know, we'd like to see this other person. That's the problem we have in society today, is that, number one, we don't have a real clear place that we call a mental institution.
Yep.
And number two, we no longer have any kind of common, even semi-consensus of what constitutes sanity.
Right. Yeah.
And so I agree with you that you know, the activity, the behavior that you said this guy Nate was doing, which I didn't see it, but you know, that activity of making threats, and also anyone who openly presents their time in a mental hospital as part of their resume, that to me, that makes me more suspicious than if somebody whispers in my ear that so and so was in the mental institution.
Of course.
I would say, oh, thank you for letting me know. I'm not really interested unless the person is doing something crazy and I could use the information. But normally I would just nod my head and say, I'm going to judge on the behavior I see. But the problem is, we are not in a society which has, I mean, there's no clear line of behavior that's acceptable or incarcerable.
Right. Right, because we've made everybody equal, and that's kind of Sally Joe. Mostly just interested in not encouraging people who are having a hard time for mental or other reasons from making recorded content that will haunt them when they are bad. It's bad. That's correct. That's a real easy, quick hit. Right? He should have been helped, and all the group, right, did not help him. We were not going to help him because we told him, like, we can't do anything for you. You need to leave because all you're here to do is help.
Social media right now is feeding off of that kind of content, because I mean, I'm going through a situation right now, and there's a couple of videos in my channel talking about it. One of them's titled Corpus Christi Police Report. I thought it was somebody who had done this before, the troll games where you try to get somebody swatted. That was actually done to me back in 2019. And the same troll crowd is continuously causing issues. In fact, Graham Grizz was once a member of that crowd. He said spoke about it. That was my first whoa out of that. There's thousands of them. They form a kind of group of style. Like you don't have to know anybody who's goth to be goth. You just start dressing in black and get some tattoos, and then all of a sudden you're part of this large group. And this stuff with the insanity. So last week, police showed up. It was a beautiful evening. The weather was good. My screen door was open. I'm sitting here looking out, and all of a sudden, someone's saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And I look up, and the police are there. And I say, "Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? You know, what's going on?" And they said, "Well, they just got a call that there was like a huge disturbance out here. A 14-year-old girl was screaming that she was being held against her will." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "They named an apartment 2 doors down, and they named my apartment." And I said, "Well, I have not heard any kind of disturbance at all. It's been dead quiet," which I know the cops knew, because when they're driving towards here, they can see this property from like way down the street. So they can see if there's a disturbance before they even arrive. And he said, "Well, you know," in the back and forth talk with him, he said, "Yeah, they figured it was a prank. And partly because of the history of this troll group against me, the apartment they named was my old apartment. I had moved 2 units down, and somebody had just moved in. This person wasn't in there less than 24 hours, and the cops show up investigating a 14-year-old girl, a mythical imaginary 14-year-old girl screaming for help. And I can only imagine what that lieutenant is going through, right? Well, then I found out the whole story. It was not the old trolls from YouTube. It was a new YouTube wannabe. A guy that lives kitty-cornered away so he can see this part of the property, just got a Ring camera, set it up on his door. And the cops knew it was him. They figured it was him right away. They said they had to come out because they're describing a scene of violence. Fortunately, they were already got their policies in place that they don't come out guns a-blazing. They check. But he had set up his camera a few days before this happened. And I happened to see him, and I said, "Hey, did you see the cops out there last night? You know that there was this crazy phone call?" And he says, "Oh," he says, "I saw the cops, but no, there was no disturbance. I didn't hear anything." And I thought that was the end of the conversation. Next thing I hear, I mean, this turns into a soap opera, but it'll be quick. I'll wind it up quickly. The maintenance man, who also lives on the property, who also knew the whole thing was stupid, he tells me that as soon as I had said to that neighbor, I'll call him Bum and Bubba. As soon as I had said to Bum and Bubba, the police were there because of a stupid prank call. And I said, "I think those idiots up north are messing with me again." And that was all I said about it. He runs over to the maintenance man and says, "There was no phone call. The cops were over at Denise's because she leaves her door open and they're worried about her. And she's crazy." And the maintenance man says, "Oh, yeah, okay, we're all crazy. Bye," you know, and sends him on his way. So naturally, we're all kind of checking with each other over who knew what was going on with the cops, because it's nerve-wracking when a whole neighborhood sees the cops at your door. They want to know. And that's part of why the trolls play this game, because that's how they punish people. Yeah. So certain trolls, not all of them. So he tells me that, and we both laugh about it. And then it occurs to me. I said, "You know what? Those people up north would never have known that there was a new tenant. Plus, when I spoke to the cops, I said, some guy just moved in there. And I haven't heard peep out of that apartment, but I did see somebody moving in, you know, earlier in the day, a guy." And they said, "Yeah, we think it was probably a prank." Well, when I said I had told the cops that some guy had moved in, Bum and Bubba had said to me, "Oh no, that was a Leslie." I said, "Well, whatever. I don't know. It looks like a guy. It's a guy. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me." And he's like, "Oh yeah, it was. It's two of them in there too." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." You know, I just ignored it. But then I said to Mark, I says, "The guys up north, these people would not have known somebody just moved in."
Right.
Bum and Bubba is getting all up in his fee-fees over it being Leslie's. And he just put up a camera. And it occurred to me, he had the camera set up so that if in fact the plan had gone was cops show up all crazy over rescuing a 14-year-old girl, new tenant gets all upset over crazy cops, sticks their head out and sees the cops calmly speaking to me, because it was like, "Hi, Denise, we got another prank call." It's like, you know, so they see the cops come and have a calm conversation with me and get in their patrol car and drive away. They're thinking, "She called." And Bum and Bubba, in the meantime, is running around telling everyone I don't like Leslie's. Well, because I don't date them. No. I'm much safer to have a friendship with a gay guy than with a Leslie, from my point of view. But you know, your point of view, it might be the opposite. But anyway, I said he thought he was going to become a TikTok millionaire. He was going to have a three-way cat fight in the street, and the cops all blazing all over the place, and he was going to make money off TikTok. And that's what's going on. That actually is a job description now.
Yep. Oh,
and
true.
And what's going to happen with that? I mean, I keep trying to figure out, because like people say, well, you know, you can take them to court for harassment, and you know, one of my friends wants me to make a big deal over it being elder abuse, and I said no. I said the minute I take one of them to court, there's 3 others that are going to use it for content.
Right.
Plus, on top of it, though, I did make the video that I titled Corpus Christi Police Report, right? I did mention the people up north, because I was still thinking it was them. And I wanted to say, hey, look, we see you, cut it out. One of the ones I named as being part of the past instances called the police department up to ask them to furnish her with proof that this time it wasn't her. And she recorded that and put it on her channel.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are getting close to the point where the police are independently going to start arresting people for making deliberately false reports. Because they now have, before they had to guess with people what's going on. But now they know exactly where the call is coming from before they even pick up the phone. Because they've got all that software and stuff. You know about all that stuff, Mark.
Yeah.
They know exactly what's going on. They probably even have their pre-crime software working on the call before the dispatcher gets done.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's the problem that I was talking about, right? With Grim Grizz, with Digital Gnosis, and there's a dozen other channels where these people are not good people. They're doing YouTube. Yeah,
really,
that makes them worse, and it makes the world worse. And they don't think so. Like they think, oh, you know, engage with people, tell them, you know, the truth of the gospel, because they're all evangelicals. Then you know, then everything will be good. And it's like, no, you're actually making the mentally ill worse. And it's not an easy thing, right? But I think a lot of people are confused. If you have homeless people around you, and they're just going to be homeless, because some people can be homeless.
And you can't tell by looking at them which one is actually nuts and which one his wife just put him out by telling the cops he hit her.
But it doesn't.
And whether he did or not.
If they're out and they're homeless, and they're by your property, whether it's a church or your house or a convenience store, you have no choice but to do something to help them. But they
Yeah.
are already in a bad situation. People that are on the internet are not in that situation. They're not in a bad situation. So your
Oh, no.
option is to make them
A lot of
worse.
them are quite.
Well, but right, and a lot of homeless people are too. It's just the difference is the homeless people aren't online, and they're not going to get caught up or create some of these online kerfuffles that are dangerous, right? But the people that are online, like Digital Gnosis and Grim Grizz, they are like that's just a den of conspiracy theorists. Like if you saw my video, my second video with Grim Grizz, it was just him being upset that I had no idea what fantasy, because it was a total made-up fantasy in his head, he was talking about. Like none. I didn't know what he was talking about. He was very upset that I didn't admit to doing a bunch of things that some of them didn't happen, but there was certainly none of them I knew anything about, because one of them was just
How long ago? How long ago was that?
How long ago was that video? That video was published. When is that one? Hold on, I'll tell you.
A long time ago.
Assuming I can find it. Oh no, that's the first one. The first one was 2021.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff started.
Yeah, it was 2021 or 2022. It was a while ago that I talked to Graham.
Well, that's a very interesting timetable, because he gave some of his own personal history when I had my encounter with him. I won't go into it, but that's a very interesting timetable. But this other thing, the one who called the police department to record her conversation, and she had it, I think it's still in her channel, but I'm not going to send anyone there. She is actually majoring for her master's degree in creative nonfiction at California University. And she is doing things with this troll group against a good half a dozen different people. And I noticed that they're particularly triggering a couple of self-described medically clinical schizophrenic guys who have been open about that. So I'm not just rendering an opinion, being armchair shrink here. And they both have been kind of turned into a team sport with these troll groups.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube doesn't take any responsibility, because I mean, I've reported so many of the ones that they've done to me, where they've taken clips of my stuff and turned it into weird things. YouTube has never taken one thing down, even though I've said, look, that's taken from my channel, etc. But I've been through several channels because they've organized gang reports on me for such things as anti-Semitism. It's like
an asymmetrical system because it's so large, and people don't understand. They think it's an equal system, and you can't make a large system equal. And they have an advantage. So like they are, whatever they're doing, and whoever it is, because I have no idea at this point, they repressed my video on Benjamin Boyce's channel. Like that's how much control they have at the algorithmic level. And I know roughly how that works. But like it's clearly what's going on. It's what's going on Twitter too. And
it has much to do with the college thing of creating majors where you can get a master's degree in creative nonfiction and bandy that out as your right to do this. Because the whole thing about creative nonfiction is that they find real people and they decide to use their lives for their own content. And they don't even have to fictionalize anymore. They don't have to create, a crazy old lady character that anyone could say, well, that looks like it's her. No, they actually are using me. And I'm not just going away because, for one thing, I am in a position where I can speak up openly about who's doing what, because I'm not young. I don't have a career to protect. They cannot touch anything. They got the cops mad at them because as soon as, they think nobody knows you. That's a weird thing too. They don't think you have a life before you appeared. I'm 73 years old. That gives me a long time. And they picked on me in an area where I used to go to the city hall and do the citizen mic thing.
Yeah.
And I up against the person who's now mayor. She was a city councilor a bunch of years ago, and I went up against her. So they all know me. I've lived in the same place for all these years. So as soon as they think we can tell the cops all kinds of things about her, and they think, well, the cops are just saying, yeah, okay, what else? Yeah, gee, that does sound crazy. And the cops hang up the phone and they say, why are these people mad at Denise again? Who she got mad at her now? It's like they know. And this thing, it's like, it's the academic machine that's behind it, that's attached to a corporate level machine, because Hollywood can't make money off of big cellulose film anymore. They've been pretty much put out of business by all these homegrown content creators. And so now they've decided they're going to do it that way. And I think the whole thing of like YouTube being willing to take people down over that stuff, which I think YouTube is a little bit less likely to than it used to be, but it does seem to me like it's a corporate industrial juggernaut that's been activated.
I think these are natural patterns. This has all happened before. I've watched 4 rounds of this on the internet already, and long before like YouTube and stuff. And this is how these big systems go. And there's technical reasons why they have to go that way, right? Like I said, like if you treat everyone the way you treat homeless people that are, say, in your neighborhood, then you're going to run into problems because, and if you don't have a sense of hierarchy, like, oh, this person's severely mentally ill, and oh, this person's, had some problems, but really, if we just give them some care, they'll get better, right? Oh, this person's never going to get better, but they need to eat, so we better just feed them and let them live, right? Like these are all different conditions versus, oh, this person, their house was in a fire and they're displaced and they just need a place to live for a month. Like these are all different things that need different treatments, and we've lost the sense for that, right? And we've lost the sense for because everybody wants equality, and no one should be censored. And I'm like, what are you, high? Of course people should be censored. You can't get away with that. You have to censor certain people because exemplifying bad things in the world is still bad. And it's not just bad for them, it's bad for everyone, right? And we don't see that anymore. So we don't have a sense. Everyone's trying to cooperate as equals, and you can't cooperate with equals.
We agree to what's bad. The whole thing that I just described that went on down here, as far as Bum and Bubba's concerned, he was doing a great thing until, the cops didn't cooperate by showing up all crazy, and everyone just said, oh, hell, here we go. Have a nice day. And which pretty much I think is going to be the way these things go, is that we're sort of organically developing a new kind of thick skin. But then you just have to wonder, well, now what are they going to come up with next?
Right. Yeah, and that's been happening more and more. I mean, they're swatting Tim Pool, and that's not working anymore. It used to, right? And things like that. And they still have to come out, but they know what's going on. And it's more and more of that. But when you let people, or worse yet, you encourage people who they don't have to be mentally ill. They can just be bad at it. bad at running a YouTube channel and you spend your time and your attention running a YouTube channel, that's making your life worse already. And if you're not as successful as you think you could be or deserve to be, then you're going to find a reason to be upset about it. And you can be upset about it, but it's not better for you, and it's not better for anyone else. And you get weird side effects, like on the Benjamin Boyce conversation that I had. One guy was like, Paul was right not to advance this guy's channel. I'm like, no, Paul has actually talked about my channel and advanced it. I wasn't talking about me. Of course, he assumed that I was, because he's a nitwit and he doesn't do his research, right? And so I had to tell him, like, no, Paul does advance my channel. So now you're wrong in 2 ways. Good job. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? But that person is not, they're not very well put together. Another guy commented on that video that, what a load of BS, and you don't know any history, and the United States followed the unwritten constitution of the UK. And I was like, our constitution is a document. All constitutions are written by definition of the word constitution. And everything he was saying, of course, was wrong. And so I was like, well, you just need to read it. Like, but these people are allowed to transmit their bad ideas to any random person who may receive them in a way they don't understand or expect, and it's not good. And then that does lead to the side effect of, TikTok fights, like bum fights. That whole bum fights thing, I mean, that was horrible for the internet.
What fight?
You never saw bum fights?
I'm sorry, I missed what you. Oh, bum fight. I didn't hear quite. I thought you said dog fight.
No, the bum fights movement. That was like a 2-year thing too. That was a long time.
What's going on with like this thing that just happened is probably what the bum fight people, that genre has evolved, and so the people who are trying to do it now are, guys like Bum and Bubba, he's a hardworking guy, and he earned his nickname because he's always borrowing stuff from people. He's like the neighborhood borrower, and so I think he got into his head that, hey, there's another way to make some money.
Well, you see that. It's exemplified with things like bum fights, and that just doesn't go away overnight. Like, that effort takes time, and people try to do that, and to them it's the same as the people who take 1,500 shots of a basketball to get an impossible shot or something, right? It's the same to them. They don't realize that it's completely different, right? So of course they're going to follow that pattern. Like I said, this isn't a new pattern for the internet, and a lot of people just don't know that. Like, there's a lot of people that just, like I said, I mean, there was a whole conversation about Nathan Ormond, and they're trying to redeem him. I'm like, dude, you got here 2 years ago. This guy's got like a 6-year or 7-year history with the group, and you think that you know something about him, and you're willing to do a live stream about him without doing any research at all, and like that's not kind to somebody. Like, you're putting them in a bad situation. You're not making him better by redeeming him in a live stream and saying, well, he was just confused and he didn't. Of course he meant it. Of course he meant it. The guy's unhinged. Like, he was talking about me a year after I had a single encounter with him. That's not normal behavior. No one does that. That's not.
No, that's another thing that goes on with these people is that's why I said to the cops, I said, well, they haven't been active for 5 years, but did you? And I said to the officer, I said, that other apartment, I used to live there. Does that make a difference? And he was a fairly young guy. And he goes, oh, you did? I said, yeah. I said, and if you look through the police logs, when I lived there, there's half a dozen calls. They all come out of the same place up north. Long story why these people got on to me, but basically it's a form of entertainment. And I said, you're going to say this person's name, and I named her. And I said, the officer who spoke to me 5 years ago, because what had happened was when the trolls started noticing that the cops were just not really listening to them, one of them tried to tell the cops how to do that. The department's going to be in trouble because they're not doing their job. Because they're telling the police department to shut down my YouTube channels.
Right.
Because they refused to go on. They wanted me to stop broadcasting their content, basically. Do my subject matter on their side. And I said, no, get out of here. I had 5,000 subscribers in my first channel.
Wow.
And they wanted to basically take it. And I just took the attitude of, hey, I don't have to worry about my income. Now, if I was in my 40s and was trying to do this as a means of making a living, which is perfectly legitimate, then that would be different. But when they did that, I said, okay, I'm just going to roll with the punches and see where it goes. And it's like they do get obsessive. And that begins to be noticed. You can watch their own chat rooms shrink down to their regulars because people begin to notice the obsessiveness of it. So it's like YouTube is becoming a magnet for certain personality disorders, kind of obsessive, narcissistic of disorders.
Yeah.
And then they start team building. And that's where it gets weird. And that now, when I discovered this whole thing about this creative nonfiction and I looked into it, it's amazing how deep the corporate world is in they're treating this like a petri dish for a whole new way to turn people into commodities. Because that's the problem right there. You and I are talking to each other as human beings, understanding there's all kinds of other factors and lives going on. But a lot of these people really don't see beyond the screen.
Yeah.
And they don't see a human being. They see content.
Yeah.
And they want to do something with it.
Right. But the problem is, if people know the history of the internet has always attracted those sorts of people, and they aren't the type of people that can cooperate. And every attempt to sort of monetize the internet and internet content has failed, and that will continue to happen because those people have no idea what they don't understand audience, and they don't understand human behavior at all. So that's like the good news. But just to sort of bring it more back to cooperation, Christopher, you're doing wonderful cooperation. What do you got for us in terms of, let's say, positive cooperation and you know, what you're working on with the game and stuff like that?
Yeah, I do need to work more on the game here, but we'll see what happens tonight with that. Yeah, no. Cooperation. Yeah, that's what I showed up to do, kind of. So, just, yeah. People say are, yeah, it's not hard to, well, I would say the first step in cooperating is probably just to show up.
Right.
And if you can
right.
do that, then you can do something else. And
that's the first step in here, too. Weird.
Right, yeah.
And finding a place to cooperate. I mean, I imagine you've been in other sort of online spaces and not found anything to do, right? Any way to interact and cooperate.
Well, yeah, or just they're not cooperating. They're not trying to cooperate towards anything higher, really. They're just trying to be a flat, equal social thing. Because that happens everywhere.
Yeah, well, and that might be the best those people can manage, to be fair to them. I just think, again, everybody thinks that everyone else can do everything plus more, right? Like everybody thinks anyone can be Elon Musk. And I'm like, that's
right.
That's not true.
Or they think that the flat cooperation is all that they need. Because yeah, they don't understand. If you don't understand the hierarchy is necessary there, then you think that everything is flat at that point. So
right. So you've seen that, and I think too when when you're able to cooperate, when you're able to engage with people and find a way to do things with them around, but that you're doing higher things. You're not cooperating with them, right? You're cooperating with something else, and they are helping, right? You're all cooperating.
Right.
That way of engaging is the only way to make something bigger than what you can make by yourself. Otherwise, you're all just doing your own YouTube channel, and all your YouTube channels suck. Instead of having one really good YouTube channel, or maybe 2 or 3 really good YouTube channels, right? And I think that was, I mean, that's something that people end up suffering from. Like, if you can't get it together, if you can't do that, if you can't say, well, I'm going to work on the thing that for you that I do well, and you work on this thing that you do well for me, and you can't reduce it to that. You have to reduce it to, well, we're cooperating around making better content, and we're not cooperating around each other, because what the hell is that? Maybe negotiating with each other for things is required for the cooperation, but that's not the whole of the cooperation.
Yeah, we can cooperate around making a board game here that, none of us were going to make this by ourselves ever. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it was never going to happen by ourselves. Yeah, it took a lot of people, a lot of time. And it's not just like, oh, one person, came up with the entrepreneurship. They call it ideation, right? One person came up with the idea, and somebody else contributed to the questions, and somebody else handles the art, and somebody else handles the play testing. Like, it's not anywhere near that.
Yeah.
That's the problem right there. That like I have been wanting to put together this book of patterns. Quilt. It's a whole system that I use in quilting that compiles different things, and everyone says, "Oh, just do it," and it's like there are skills involved with taking an idea that I can put on paper, but making it presentable so that a self-publishing company will spit out a book that looks like what we want. And getting there, and I mean, I worked in textiles most of my life. One place I worked at, we had the design studio right there in the same building with the sewing machine operators, and I was in the garment cutting side of it. So I was watching the designer put things on the thing, and people running up and down the stairs to the owner of the company, who was basically, I think we should do something with this fabric. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 everyone's busy. And I'm cutting out 200 pieces and sending them over to the manufacturing floor. And now it's like people think, oh no, if you've got a good idea, you can do the whole thing because you know how to do these things. And it's like, well, I don't actually. I don't know how to take the fabric from the cutting table and make it match what's on the seamstress dummy. And I don't know how to make it actually come together. I'm no good at sewing clothing. I tried that and failed miserably. So, quilts are easy because they lay flat. That's your big deal, is get the thing to lay flat. But people don't understand that. And you can't hire anybody. You can't hire somebody and say, look, I want you to take the work I've got on paper here and turn it into a presentable publication. They'd say, well, you can get a program to do that. And I say, well, okay, fine. There goes your paycheck. Bye.
Yeah.
Just because I have tried to hire people in the past, and before I retired, I tried, and what I got was people who thought their job was to tell me how to do it myself by buying another program.
Right.
Now, this was a tweet that you made, Mark, that the low-level, entry-level jobs type things, that's what you're actually learning, how to cooperate with people. Right. And when you end up with a bunch of people who never learned how to cooperate, that's when AI looks more appealing to.
Yeah. Yeah, the people that are going to be replaced by AI are the people that can't cooperate. And then you'll notice if you use AIs, and I use a lot of AIs lately, we used AIs for the game. Like the AI was amazingly helpful to help us launch the game, various aspects of the game. Like I can't do, from scratch game design. Excuse me, I'm not, that's not my skill, right? But the AI did an amazing. It got us close enough that we could just fix it, right? And the AI got us started with the question and answers and a bunch of stuff, right? And it helps with research and all this other stuff. But the people that are going to get replaced by AI are the non-cooperative people, because if you use AIs, you'll notice, and this is actually a flaw in them, they're super cooperative. So I went to an event last night, actually, at the little center in Columbia here, the entrepreneurship place, and they were talking about coding AIs. And unfortunately, I didn't learn anything, but that's not super surprising. I'm using like 5 coding AIs. And so they were saying, like, they were joking about the fact that when you use the coding AI and you say, didn't you make a mistake here to the AI? Because you can do that. You can just tell it, like, you made a mistake, right? It'll be, oh my goodness, you're so right. It's always super polite, and it's always super like, oh, you're the best. You're right. You're right, to everybody, to everything you say. Which is, but the problem with that is that it will often prefer an answer when there isn't one. And so it'll try to make something work that doesn't work because it's so agreeable that right? And then that's why people in certain groups and BOM can't cooperate, because they're too agreeable. And you can't be agreeable and cooperate, because cooperation is all about navigating that conflict that everybody learns from. Right? Because if I go out and I do the game and I freaking play test the game, like on my server by myself, which this is a mistake I did not make, you'll notice, and we do it in half an hour and go, oh, that's too fast. No one's going to want to play this game or whatever. Then we don't realize, no, that's because it's us, you moron. And actually, people who aren't familiar with the material, because they're not on my server and they don't pay any attention to my YouTube channel, thank goodness, they're going to struggle with this. And that's what makes a good game, is the struggle. Like, you don't want a game that's an easy win. That would be an agreeable game. That's no fun. You're not learning anything. You're not changing. That's why kids' games are boring, right? Maybe you have to play a boring kids' game for the sake of the child who will struggle with the game. Oh, see how cooperation works? It's not agreement. Agreement has nothing to do with cooperation. The only thing you're agreeing on is the aim. And that's why you have to look at the history of the group, or maybe the history of the people in the group, and look at what they're doing, and then look at their mission statement or listen to what they think they're doing, and compare those 3 things so that you have some way to orient yourself. Oh, no, these guys are no good, right? Like it would be very hard for people to tell that, that Jacob Federaci isn't, one good word away from Paul Vanderklay to start his, Jacob Federaci YouTube network, right? Except we watched him try it 3 times, and we were there trying to help him, and he kicked everybody off, right? And then you're like, oh, well, historically that can't be true, because he had all the support in the world, and he could have easily gotten, basically anyone that listened to Paul to watch his new little 24/7 network, which at one time he wanted to build a 24/7 network. It was a little ridiculous, right? That could have happened very easily, but he sabotaged it. No one else sabotaged it. He sabotaged it by himself. If you don't know that, right? If you don't know Grim Grizz has stolen YouTube channels, at least temporarily, and stolen money from people, and is a drug addict and an ex-con, then you might think, he's pretty cool. And the fact that he does subliminal messaging and the thing everybody's so impressed with him about, and to be fair, he does tell everybody this, but they don't listen to him. He tells everybody this. The thing they're so impressed about is actually a saying from a Catholic priest that he slightly modified very cleverly, because he's not stupid, right? But his whole thing about Set, that's actually a sermon from a Catholic priest. Okay. And good on him for noticing how good it was and modifying it and popularizing it. Good work. Everything else he does is horrible, though. So, On balance, not great, not great. And that's the problem. If you don't look at the history, then you don't know that. And you come into something new and you go, oh, you're just like one finding a way, right? Or whatever. I knew somebody from Clubhouse. She was actually offered huge amounts of investment money. Huge. I'm talking millions of dollars because they had at some level at least noticed that the Fourth Estate had fallen. And, she was like, well, we could start a neutral news organization. And that's not even a new idea. But she actually had access to the people with the money that would do the thing. And I was like desperately trying to make that happen. I was like, oh, I'll totally help you with that. That sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know how successful it would have been, but like I was totally willing to that sounds worth trying to do. Right? No, did not do it. So a lot of people think, oh, it's just because you can't get investment or just because nobody's listening. No, it's not. That's not. Like, there's a lot more going on. A lot of these people had everything and threw it all away. Maybe I don't necessarily understand the reason, right? That particular person was confronted later about that and told, we were all with you. We were all ready. You could have had this. And still to this day hasn't acknowledged it. Like, I don't think the self-awareness is there that, no, I sabotaged that, on my own, but maybe by accident, like maybe unknowingly, but still and so a lot of people are just a lot more optimistic and hopeful and believing that, oh, it's just one event away. And it's like so many things have to come together to set up a business, to run an organization, to build a community, right? Like, it's just a lot of moving parts and you have to get the right team. And finding the right team is magic and almost impossible. And most people are bad at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a thing that I've seen with the LARP group stuff. There's a lot of that where you have certain people leading things, and when they disappear, things fall apart. And yeah. And then lots of people get mad and then cause other problems.
But people also tell on themselves in very interesting ways, because I said a little while ago, the interesting timing when Mark said when that happened, approximately. When Grizz was, first of all, Grizz totally attacked me out of the blue when all I did was show up and say hello. And I'm like, whoa. And he actually had been prepped because I had been on PBK's show just to say hello, and everything was nice, and PBK was very welcoming and everything was wonderful. In fact, he encouraged me to come back. And then I started saying, well, maybe I will start becoming active in this community because, I'm getting away from the theological academic discussion level, but I was more into it at the time. And so the next step I did was, since PBK kept talking about Grim Grizz, I said, well, I better go see what he is. And I was watching, and I just said hello in the chat. And immediately, boom. And then Grim Grizz was talking about his own history, and he named a very serious situation that involved this very same troll group that I have decided I'm going to take on, and I've been doing for close to 10 years now. In 2020 or so, there was somebody who apparently committed suicide by jumping off a bridge. And of course, all the conspiracies are in there. Oh, he was pushed. Oh, this one did it. That one did it. And this whole industry started up. He said he was part of that group that was around that conspiracy. And you're nodding because you know what I'm talking about. And I'm trying to dance around it, make it clear without opening it. But as soon as he said that person's name, I knew right away, because what this troll group does, and I was able to my first encounter with them was when I had that 5,000 channel, and it was like normal kind of stuff going on. A lot of people asking me to cover there were shootings, the school and church shootings, and I was supposed to be an Alex Jones saying it was all fake. And on November 3rd was a Sunday, a church in a town not too far from me experienced a shooting, and it was the Sutherland Springs shooting. 16 people killed at a Baptist church in the service. Somebody went into the service and started shooting up the pews. Among the killed were the teenage daughter of the pastor, and the guy was a young kid who himself was shot by somebody driving up to all the disturbance, and somebody jumped out of his truck with a gun and shot the perpetrator. That was what happened. Well, I didn't talk about stuff like that. My channel was, I would hang up the quilts in the background while we talked about general, headline elections and general political and other topics, events, current events, but nothing personal. And then people were getting interested, and they saw a quilt, they wanted to know about buying it. And I was actually up to making about $300 a month and enjoying myself. And then these people come along, it's like, well, what do you think of this one? What do you think of that one? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even watch this channel or that channel. But they were all part of this networking group. And one of the things they did was they get you to express an opinion, and then you're a good guy or a bad guy on their side. And then they brought up, one of them came in after I had said several times to people, this was 2 days. It was Sunday that church shooting happened. Then it was Tuesday. And all these people were saying, why don't you talk about that shooting? And I said, look, I'm not, first of all, I said, this just happened. It's people near here. I mean, it's really about a 2-hour drive, but this is the beach they come to down here. And they're up near San Antonio. And I said, I'm not going to talk about something like that. That's just happened, and I don't talk about stuff like that anyway. So I was just politely putting them off. All of a sudden, there's 2 people who are the same person. She's in under her nickname that she had been in the chat for months, and I didn't think anything of her. She was just another regular person. She says, well, they were celebrating Guy Fawkes Day, because that Sunday was Guy Fawkes Day. And as soon as that person said that, I'm like, whoa. And at the same time as she posted that, another profile showed up with a regular legal name, not a YouTube nickname, and my daughter's picture as its avatar. And echoed the Guy Fawkes statement. Alongside her, this all happened within a few minutes, and I'm just watching this happen on my screen. And alongside that, this person comes in who I recognized right away. A professional employee of Steve Hassan, the famous anti-cult guru up in Boston. Mm-hmm. Some members of my family, back in 2004 approximately, had hired him to deprogram my daughter because I couldn't get her to move out of Massachusetts. I had moved to Texas and had stayed away from the family until I went up for my parents' funerals. They died about 2 years apart, age 85 and 92. And my daughter, I raised her apart from these relatives. And she was trying to reconcile with people, and they were trying to, all the family stuff was going on. And anyway, they decided, I guess probably because at one point she must have told the wrong relative where to stick it. The one that I chose to leave Massachusetts because she used all her corporate strings in town. I refused to let her use me as a money front because a big part of the business in Massachusetts is to use artists as money launderers. And she actually, I even had the real estate set up, and we were moving furniture in to open an art supply store, and it was going to be a gallery, art supply, and blah-de-blah. I even had a British artist helping do the physical work. We were putting it together. And then I realized what she wanted to use it for, and I said no, and all of a sudden the whole thing got torpedoed. And everyone thought, oh boy, you try her business and you can't finish it. And they didn't realize she turned around and torpedoed it. And I said, y'all go to hell, I'm going to Texas. And that was, I mean, that wasn't when I decided to move down here, but it was when I decided to move, period. And my daughter didn't really understand, and she chose to stay there. And she didn't, but she had no contact with family because she remained separate, and I didn't contact with them. So when she showed up for the funerals, they all wanted to get their hooks in. And I thought she was old enough and streetwise enough to understand that I was just smiling and being polite. I wasn't really, you know, engaging with anybody. And she was too open about herself because they're asking all personal questions. And she had gotten certified as a yogi teacher from an ashram. There's actually an ashram up there that she spent 2 years at. And she was very good. I mean, she worked with a regular psychology clinic. She was doing yoga with veterans, and she was very good. And but this one relative that wanted me to be the money laundering thing always used the Catholic Church as her shield. You know, she's the holy saint. And I mean, it just was ridiculous. And all you had to do, if you're involved in organized crime, particularly in Massachusetts, all you have to do is call up Steve Hassan, tell him you go to this parish or that congregation of a recognized mainstream church, and you got a young relative who's joined a cult. Mm-hmm. That's it. They subjected her to a deep programming. She had told me that my sister invited her to Thanksgiving when I was up there for it was for my mother's wake. And I said, she invited you for Thanksgiving? And she said, yeah. I said, you know, she and I don't speak, and she didn't even tell me. I said, have you noticed that she hasn't even tried to speak to me since we've been here? I said, I think it's strange. I said, if I were you, I wouldn't go. And she's like, oh my, you know, isn't it time to bury the hatchets? And I'm like, not when the hatchet is a machine gun. But yeah. She, you know, I said, well, you figure it out for yourself. I said, but if I were you, I would not go because it's weird. I said, it's just plain weird to invite the daughter of somebody to whom you do not speak. You know, red flag right there. But my daughter went, and I heard from my younger brother, who was very upset. He had been pulled in on this. Now, he himself almost became a priest. When my daughter was born, 1976, he stopped by. She was a few days old when he stopped by. We had just got home, and he stopped by to visit his new niece, and he was on his way into his 5 weeks retreat that they do in the seminary before they get ordained. And he was going down to St. Edmund's Island, Mystic, Connecticut. Is a saint. There used to be an order, the St. Edmundite priests. They've disbanded, but they were teaching at his college in Vermont, and so he went into that seminary. And then when he got out, he left. He didn't get ordained because he saw things happen that freaked him out. But he maintains it's like he never left the bubble. He went from the parochial school to parochial high school to parochial or Catholic, highly traditional, very enclosed Catholic college up in the woods in Vermont. And my sister, the one who is so good at using Steve Hassan against anybody who doesn't play her games, she also went from parochial school to Catholic high school to Catholic college. And then she went to work for a Catholic. People don't realize how Catholic GE was. But yeah. Jack Welch was an altar boy. And that whole structure, my brother-in-law was at the table playing cards with those guys. I did briefly date one of them, but my sister was up there. She was right up there. And that was how they used her. She was a narcissistic personality, severe, malignant. The psychologist that I dealt with in family issues actually said, no, this is a malignant, because the difference is a severe will go crazy on you if you happen to come into their little circle. But a malignant goes out and builds circles. And like when the malignant wanted me to be the money launderer, and I said no, and I made the mistake of saying, I don't know where you're meeting these people that you're introducing me to. They're all crooks. I was only referring to the way they behaved. Mm-hmm. She thought I knew what they were doing, and she got paranoid. Anyway, I forget where I was going with all this.
Your daughter went to Thanksgiving.
They never, because my brother and my sister, those two of all of us, the rest of us all got out into the world in different ways. But those two never set foot outside a very sheltered Catholic bubble. Mm-hmm. And so when my sister decided the only way because she couldn't control me, she was going to try to control my daughter and then get to me through her because she was still paranoid. He was the one she could recruit to help. And he called me up totally upset. He said he had no idea what was going on when he agreed. He said he was sorry he agreed to that Thanksgiving thing. They were supposed to just talk to my daughter. They were playing on his religious. He's much more theologically correct. You know, he's a lot like Father Eric. He's much more, and he's not a priest. He never became a priest. The trolls tried to run a thing on him. They actually got $3,000 in with some of their lies. I'm sorry, I'm getting upset. I gotta calm down. But basically, he had no idea. He thought they were going to have a religious discussion with my daughter about the evils of yoga.
Yeah.
He said she was attacked. She was physically assaulted. They tried to restrain her. Steve Hassan's employee was not there, but other employees were. The one that showed up in that chat with the Guy Fawkes Day, I recognized him right away. He had been stalking her while she was still alive before she got killed. And I saw him, and I saw the Guy Fawkes remark, and I yelled something angry and not family friendly. I said, I'm shutting the stream off, and this is why. And I had a lot of very supportive, loving people in my community. I mean, they understood the whole quilt thing, and we're having fun. One of them is still in touch with me. She was shocked that day. She said she'll never forget me pointing and saying that one right there, and getting that person's name and saying, that's my daughter's picture from the memorial page. Mm-hmm. And then I said, and that other one right there, he said something very private about my brother, the one who had gone into seminary. He said something very private about him to make sure I knew who he was. He had been sending threats. And the police in Texas were starting to look at the whole thing, but it was like they were saying, hey, you know, these are just people insulting your daughter. Tell your daughter just not to talk to anyone she doesn't know. And it's not a big deal. And yeah, no, it's not. But then 3 months later, we get the phone call that she's found dead in her room. Right. And it's suicide. Right. And her fiance also committed suicide. And Grim Grizz was with that group. He wasn't with the group around my daughter, but he was a group around that other guy. And what happened was, over the years, this stuff, she died in 2010. I didn't speak up until 2015. And then it's around 2017, I decided to just start my life and do my thing. And then all of a sudden they show up to say, no, you're not going to start your life. We own you. And I got together with somebody else that they've targeted for years, and we just started tracking through every single person they targeted either already had a suspicious or controversial death in their family, and they had been in the news, or these people were around somebody who then supposedly jumps off a bridge, and probably did jump off a bridge because they drive you that crazy. And I said, every single one of them. And then in one of the chats where they talk, they think what they're doing is normal, and they trade tips with each other. And I watched one of them talk about how they were using the website Parents of Murdered Children to find new families to get involved with. Because they know if there's a death in your family, they can find somebody who's got, like my brother. They somehow, this guy convinced them that he was an investigator, and he was going to help me, who's, my brother thinks Texas is all camouflage and crazies, and it is, but that's a good way to be. That's like, they're telling people I'm in a cult in Texas. And they did that to her, but they are feeding off finding anybody who has anything happen, just even total accidental. They find the news, they've got their databases, they've got their discords, and they are, it's an industry. Every single family, every single individual in YouTube that they had been messing with from when they started with me in 2017 until today had a death connection. And one of them, her death connection was a cold case. Nephew died, was beaten to death in 1980s. And they got her to do a documentary on this cold case. And that was around 2016. She did that documentary. They told her she was going to be a big star and she was going to have a real big channel and all this stuff. And as soon as she stopped playing the game, they turned on her.
Right.
And she went to court and got a protection order. Now, she was supposed to threaten court, but not do it. But she went and did it. And the CBS, I think it was either CBS or Fox News, ran a story. And then it turns out from something she said, the reporter decided and talked CBS into doing, or Fox, I forget, it was one of the mainstreams, talked them into doing a mainstream, fully out there story on the YouTube problem, because they had been going after that reporter behind the scenes over a death in her family. And 100% a death cult that has a rule book that they share in Discord about how to find a family.
I know all about it, Denise. I know all about it. This is very old. It's been on the internet forever. The very early internet had all this. And people don't realize.
But the system.
And look, you have to understand, too. Things like, The Martian's the best example. So the movie The Martian is based on a book. That book was done online. That is an online experiment, a successful one, right? Lost, the TV show Lost, that was so horrible at the end because they couldn't end it. That was an online experiment that happened to be very successful. And so people are following that pattern of trying to monetize things on the internet, forums in particular. And other people have been following those patterns ever since to do whatever they do. And that's part of the problem, is people don't understand exemplification and audience. And if you just let anybody do broadcast, you're going to get the bad actors monetizing that, and the legal system is not up to date enough to deal with it. They don't have a method.
Yeah, but you're saying if you just let anybody, the fact is they're running with the same logic, which is this woman with the master's degree that called my police station last week to put her 2 cents in. She's arguing that resume. Her college is arguing resume. Steve Hassan's people are the ones running this death cult.
Yeah.
Because they're basically stepping in on behalf of anybody who has a reason to be paranoid about someone in the family knowing they're up to no good, and not believing that I didn't care, I just want to move to Texas and do what you want with your crazy schemes. But it is a system that a lot of people don't. You understand it because you have a mind, Mark, that works with systems.
I've seen it, but
most people.
I know some, not those people, but I know people that have done that. I know some people who did Goatsy. That was the early internet sort of nasty behavior that they were like, oh, well, we need security for websites. So what we'll do is we'll break into websites and we'll put disgusting pictures.
Oh, yeah, the white cat.
That's Goatsy. Right, and then that'll encourage those people to do hostility on the web, and of course it doesn't work. But it does traumatize people, myself included. And like this is the same stuff, and it's not. It might be different people doing slightly different things, but this is what the internet will do if you keep it open and try to let anybody on. And the more people you let on, the more bad stuff happens.
If you don't keep it open, who holds the keys to the door?
Well, that's all. But that's the problem with everything. Like, yeah, you have to have good people holding the keys to the door of anything, whether it's corporate America or it's the government or it's any technology, right? Like, you can weaponize the internet against
people. That's how they're going to do it. And they already lobotomized the block.
Well, I don't think it matters. These patterns are going to unfold. They have always unfolded. And that's the problem, is that everything is so split up and everybody is doing their own thing. And that is not good for society. Like, you can't have a society and have equality and openness, or either one. Like, you can't have openness and have a society. You can't have equality and have a society. You can't have ecumenism and have a society. You can't have those things and have a society. You have to pick one. I picked the society, which is enabled by the cooperation. That's why I did cooperation. I'm like, no, this is how you build society. It's not John Vervaeke's opponent processing. That's how you destroy society. And that's all it can do, is break things. You can't make things, you can't build things on opponent anything. Opposition as a term, as a word, as a defined word in the English language, means to set against, to oppose, to set against. Setting against is an action that you as the agent do. Don't do that action, and then things are not in opposition. It's that simple. And once you get out of the opposition game, then you avoid the conspiracy game. You can get into the game of cooperation. And so, on that note, I'm going to shut down the live stream. It's good to see you, Denise. It's so tragic. Like, what you've been through is horrible. But
well, people are figuring it out. And if people didn't speak up about what's actually going on, the bad guys would be more successful than they are. And I'm always confident that we're just this far from pulling the plug on the whole stupid machine. And every time I say that, they set up a new generator and plug in another plug. But, oh well.
Yeah, it's very hard to stop momentum once it's started. Christopher, what do you got to closing thoughts on cooperation?
The cooperation is basically the only way to be better. So
I like that. Nice and simple. And thank you for the tips for the next few live streams, because that's I think you're right about all that. So we'll get that rolling. We're working on probably 3 or maybe 4 monologues that are going to become recorded videos. Once they get edited, they'll probably get stuff added to them as well. So we're working on that. That's also Christopher's fault. And thanks to Noah and Gustav's and Sally Joe for a bunch of material today, because I had probably a third of the material done until today, and then I was talking to them and finding out what they didn't understand. So that was helpful. And someday, Denise, will get somebody down to where you are to get your gain control fixed, so your microphone isn't quite so horrible. And look, everybody, thanks for joining. Thanks for cooperating with the live stream. And there's much more to cooperate with on our Discord server and in our little community. And we've got the petersonsphere.com. We've got the markofwisdom.org, where you can buy a wonderful mug or an excellent book on community. And look, I hope everybody has a good week. I haven't picked which of the topics we're going to do next week yet, just because today was super busy. But I will pick that. I will announce it on the community page of the YouTube channel of that because I got to use that more. And then hopefully I'm going to do some experiments and see if I can stream to more sources, just because I think I can get away with it without having to deal with only with StreamYard, while still using StreamYard, which is super useful and really awesome. So listen, everybody, I hope you had a great week, and I hope you have a great upcoming week, and I hope to see you next Friday. And just remember the most important thing, and that is to cooperate so that you can be better, because the world needs you, and that's how you do it. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful